Chapter 2796. The arrival of Huang Wu. Brother Zhuo, why are you in the lower class cabin? Suddenly, a voice called out to Zhuoan. Zhuoan turned around and saw a red-clothed woman walk out of the room. This woman was Fire Plume from the Purple Red House. My room is right across from yours. Zhuoan pointed at the room he was in and smiled faintly. What? You are one of the alchemists participating in the pill competition. Why are you in the lower class cabin? As far as I know, the other alchemists who are participating in the pill tempering grand assembly are staying in the first class cabin. So, they should have arranged a top class cabin for you even if there isn't a seat in the first class cabin. Huo Yu's long and shapely eyebrows knitted as she spoke in a displeased manner. Zhuoan shook his head and said indifferently, accommodations don't affect me too much. Since I'm already here, I might as well take things as they come. There are some things that I don't need to be too calculative about. Fire Plume could only drop the matter when she heard Zhuoan's words. She then pulled Zhuoan and knocked on Tong Chimay and Steel Plume's room. Tong Chimay and Steel Plume were not far from the room next door. Zhuoan and Fire Plume chatted for a while before the flying ship suddenly shook. They felt as if they were floating in the air. They knew that the flying ship had started moving. Zhuoan extended his divine sense outside and found that he couldn't find any traces of the flying ship. He was a little surprised by the flying ship's speed. He had to admit that the flying ship's speed was even faster than the spacetime roulette. It had reached the point where it could surpass spacetime. However, he knew that although the flying ship was fast, it wasn't very agile. Moreover, it was very complicated to operate. The destination had to be set in advance before it could set off. It couldn't be changed midway. The flying ship could be used to travel, but it couldn't be used to chase people. Zhuoan chatted with Fire Plume and the others for a while before returning to his room. Lei Zishuan had said that with the flying ship's speed, they could reach the Pill Array Immortal Alliance's territory in 5 days. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye for Zhuoan, quickly passing by. 3 days later, the spaceship suddenly trembled violently, and then quickly stopped. The cultivators in the cabin were awakened. They quickly left their rooms and went to the deck. Zhuoan was no exception. He brought Fire Plume and Tong Chimay to the deck. At this moment, there was another spaceship in front of the spaceship. This spaceship was slightly smaller than the Thunder God battleship. Its entire body was golden and dazzling, looking extremely luxurious. The moment Zhuoan saw the golden spaceship, his eyes narrowed. This was because he saw a few familiar faces on the golden flying ship. Among them, Huang Wu and Huang Shan from the Huangji family were present. He knew that this golden flying ship should be the Huangji aristocratic family's flying ship. At this moment, the Huangji aristocratic family's flying ship was blocking the Thunder God's flying ship. This is the Huangji family's flying ship. Fire Plume's beautiful eyes narrowed. She couldn't help but lean towards Zhuoan. Fire Plume, Chimay, and Steel Plume, if the three of you trust me, don't resist. I'll put you into my great world. How about it? Zhuoan took a deep breath. He felt that something was wrong, so he transmitted his voice to Fire Plume and the other two. Fire Plume and the other two looked at Zhuoan and nodded heavily. Although Huang Wu might be targeting Zhuoan, he obviously wouldn't let them go. Now, they could only rely on Zhuoan. After Zhuoan quietly put Fire Plume and the other two into his great world, he quietly retreated and hid in a remote corner. He secretly observed Huang Wu, Huang Shan, and the others. At this moment, Huang Wu, Huang Shan, and the others had already arrived on the deck of the Thunder God battleship. Lei Litian naturally went forward to welcome them with a face full of smiles. Brother Huang, what a coincidence to meet you here. Lei Litian said with a smile. Huang Wu cupped his fists and said with a fake smile, Brother Lei, do you think my eternal pills are so easy to take? Fire Plume and Steel Plume are the people I want, but you went back on your word and didn't even give me the eternal pills. Even if we weren't going the same way, you would have met me. Lei Litian didn't feel embarrassed at all. He still smiled faintly and said, Brother Huang, did you come here today to ask for them? Humph. I went to Purple Red Cottage before, but Fire Plume and Steel Plume weren't there. I knew they must be on the Thunder God battleship. Brother Lei, why do you think I'm chasing after your Thunder God battleship? Huang Wu said coldly. Lei Litian's smile faded. He quietly transmitted his voice, Brother Huang, if you want those too, why don't I give them to you? However, you might find a pleasant surprise. If you pay a certain price, I'll leave Zhuowen to you. Hearing Lei Litian's words, Huang Wu's pupils shrank. He immediately forced himself to calm down and replied, Brother Lei, are you serious? Zhuowen is on your Thunder God battleship. Lei Litian still smiled and transmitted his voice, if Brother Huang doesn't believe me, you can check with your divine sense. As soon as Lei Litian finished speaking, Huang Wu's divine sense spread out like a tide and instantly enveloped the entire deck of the Thunder God battleship. At the same time, his aura of an early-stage Genesis Lord erupted and crushed the deck of the Thunder God battleship. The moment Huang Wu's divine sense fell on Zhuowen, Zhuowen had a bad premonition and immediately took out the space-time roulette, turned into a stream of light, and fled from the deck. Brother Lei, this time, I, Huang Wu, owe you a favor. After I capture this little bastard, I'll repay this favor. The instant Huang Wu's divine sense swept over Zhuowen, he flew out like a rock spreading its wings and directly chased after Zhuowen. His voice was like an empty valley that echoed on the deck of the Thunder God battleship. Lei Litian's expression was somewhat gloomy. This Huang Wu was truly sinister. He actually directly announced this to the public. Didn't that mean that he was the one who revealed Zhuowen's whereabouts? However, Lei Litian quickly regained his composure. He knew that Zhuowen was definitely going to die this time. He was no longer a threat to the Thunder God Garden, so he didn't take Huang Wu's words to heart. Zishuan, command the Thunder God battleship to the Pillar Ray Immortal Alliance. I'll go and watch the show. Lei Litian sent a message to Lei Zishuan before disappearing from the deck without a sound. Lei Zishuan's beautiful eyes were complicated as she looked at the distant stream of light chasing and fleeing. She knew that Zhuowen wouldn't be able to escape this time. Chapter 2797. Lei Litian makes a move. Zhuowen frantically activated the space-time roulette, causing its speed to reach its maximum. It was like a ray of light, shuttling through the starry sky. However, Zhuowen's expression turned increasingly ugly. Although the space-time roulette's speed had reached its maximum, he realized that Huang Wu's vast aura wasn't being pulled away by him at all. Furthermore, he realized that apart from Huang Wu's aura, there was another aura that surpassed Huang Wu's aura. This terrifying aura carried the aura of lightning. He knew that this aura that was even more terrifying than Huang Wu's was probably Lei Litian. When he thought of Lei Litian, Zhuowen's expression turned gloomy. He felt that it was too much of a coincidence that the Thunder God ship had encountered the Huangji family's ship. He knew that there was definitely something fishy going on, and he guessed that the person behind all this was Lei Litian. Furthermore, he also guessed that Lei Litian's true motive might be to watch the fight from the other side. As for what his motive was, Zhuowen knew that Lei Litian must have guessed that he had secrets on him. Just based on guesses, he wanted to kill Zhuowen. It was clear that Lei Litian was vicious and wasn't a kind person. Although Huang Wu's speed was very fast, it was fortunate that Zhuowen's space-time roulette speed had reached a terrifying level ever since it was perfected, surpassing most of the flying divine artifacts. Huang Wu followed closely behind, but he wasn't able to close the distance between him and Zhuowen. He couldn't help but feel angry and shocked. He hadn't expected that Zhuowen would have such an extraordinary flying divine artifact. Even he couldn't catch up to him. As for Lei Litian, who was far behind, he was also quite shocked. In his opinion, although Zhuowen's cultivation had improved, he was still only at the level of Hunyuan Lord. After all, Huang Wu was an early-stage Genesis Lord, who knew how many times stronger than Zhuowen. Catching up to him would be an easy task. However, it seemed that he had underestimated Zhuowen. Lei Litian frowned when he saw that Huang Wu was still unable to catch up to Zhuowen. He originally wanted to watch the fight from the other side of the river. He wanted to see what kind of trump card Zhuowen had to be able to create havoc in the Huangji family and kill the Huangji family's third headmaster, Huang Lin, and a group of experts. Now that Huang Wu was still unable to catch up to Zhuowen, Lei Litian's plan was ruined. Could it be that this stalemate would continue? Thinking of this, Lei Litian laughed and said, "Little brother Zhuo, why are you running? This time, you're representing my Thunder God Park to participate in the Pill Tempering Grand Assembly. If you leave like this, aren't you not giving my Thunder God Park any face?" Zhuowen's gaze was cold, and he didn't even look at Lei Litian behind him as he said coldly, "This Zhuo would like to ask Villa Lord Lei, what is the meaning of this? Huangwu and I already have quite a bit of enmity between us. Does Land Master Lei intend to just watch as I walk into the tiger's den? Now you want me to stop and die?" Lei Litian disagreed and said, "Pill Master Zhuo, you've misunderstood. No matter what the enmity between the two of you is, I will protect you. After all, you're a guest Pill Master of my Thunder God Park. You can be considered a member of my Thunder God Park. If you stop now, I'll speak for you." Huang Wu frowned and his eyes flickered, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at Zhuowen's back that was still fleeing. Zhuowen sneered and said, "Villa Lord Lei, why don't you ask Huang Wu, this old bastard, to stop first? Instead, you want me, a mere Hunyuan lord, to stop first. Isn't this unreasonable?" Hearing Zhuowen call him an old bastard, Huang Wu's eyes widened. His eyes contained intense anger, but he forcefully suppressed it. Once he caught this little bastard, he would torture him until he wished he was dead. The smile on Lei Litian's face faded, and he said indifferently, "Little brother Zhuo, I, Lei Litian, came to mediate with good intentions. Are you going to be so uncooperative? Do you not put me, Lei Litian, in your eyes?" Zhuowen cursed Lei Litian for being shameless in his heart, but on the surface, he said with a fake smile, "Villa Lord Lei, you're exaggerating. I, Zhuowen, didn't say that. It's just what you think." Lei Litian snorted and said, "Since you don't put me in your eyes, then don't blame me for being ruthless." With that, Lei Litian took a step forward and rushed out like a bolt of lightning. At Lei Litian's feet, a lightning sword had appeared at some point in time. As soon as the lightning sword appeared, its speed reached the extreme, instantly surpassing Huang Wu in front. Moreover, wherever the lightning sword passed, the starry sky exploded and lightning surged. It was as if the surroundings had turned into a world of lightning at this moment. Thunder God's sword. Huang Wu looked at the lightning sword at Lei Litian's feet, his eyes filled with fear. The Thunder God's sword was the most precious treasure of the Thunder God Park. It was forged by generations of Villa Lords and was a Genesis divine artifact. One had to know that Genesis divine artifacts were extremely rare in the Dao Palace level forces. Only the truly powerful Dao Palace level forces had Genesis divine artifacts. The Huangji family was considered a relatively powerful Dao Palace level force, but they didn't have a Genesis divine artifact. This was the specific reason why the Huangji family's scale was similar to the Thunder God Park's, but their strength was slightly weaker. Of course, Lei Litian's cultivation was also slightly stronger than Huang Wu's. He was a mid-stage Genesis Lord. It was obvious that the Thunder God Park was stronger than the Huangji family. The Thunder God's sword exploded in the air. Its speed was extremely fast, surpassing Huang Wu's, and it instantly closed in on Zhuowen. Zhuowen felt the aura behind him getting stronger and stronger, and he knew that the shameless Lei Litian had finally made his move. Zhuowen didn't even think about it. He used the power of the 4-star Pangu sacred body and then used the tyrannical art of slaughtering Dao to punch out. This punch was extremely terrifying. It was as if it could split heaven and earth, and the entire space was distorted and suppressed because of it. Poochie. Unfortunately, the gap between Zhuowen and the Thunder God's sword was too big. The moment the Thunder God's sword stabbed into Zhuowen's right fist, it immediately disintegrated his right arm. Zhuowen groaned and immediately retreated. Looking at his disintegrated right arm, his gaze was extremely serious. He knew that Lei Litian's attack just now didn't even count as an attack, but it easily disintegrated his right arm. One had to know that his Pangu sacred body had smoothly reached the pinnacle of the 4-star Pangu sacred body by relying on the power of the dragon vein. Its power was even stronger than before. In front of Lei Litian's Thunder God's sword, it was as weak as tofu. If he hadn't reacted quickly and retreated in time, his entire body would have been blasted into pieces. Lei Litian's attack immediately caused Zhuowen's speed to plummet. Huang Wu took the opportunity to land on the other side of Zhuowen. He stared at Zhuowen fiercely, and his powerful aura firmly locked onto Zhuowen, afraid that Zhuowen would escape. Hey! What a powerful physical body! Lei Litian looked at Zhuowen in astonishment. Although the sword just now was just a casual attack, it was still an attack from the Thunder God's sword. This was a Genesis-level divine weapon. Even if it was just a casual attack, cultivators below the Genesis level would basically be smashed into pieces and die without a burial place. Chapter 2798. Scorching Sun Tyrannical Dao. Also, the Dao technique you used should be the Tyrannical Dao slaughtering technique, right? From the looks of it, it doesn't seem to be an incomplete version. Could it be that you have obtained the complete version? It had to be said that Lei Litian's vision was extremely unique and ruthless. Zhuowen only used one move earlier and he actually saw through the clues. Zhuowen remained silent. He was now completely surrounded by Lei Litian and Huang Wu. It would be difficult for him to escape. The only way now was to break out of the encirclement. Although Zhuowen's strength had improved rapidly, he knew that there was still a huge gap between him and the creator of the universe. If it was just one person, Zhuowen might have used the Huyi godly arrow to fight. However, with two creators working together, Zhuowen knew that it would be useless even if he had the Huyi godly bow and the Huyi godly arrow. These two divine tools were indeed powerful, but he was too weak and couldn't unleash much of their power. Furthermore, it would be difficult for him to deal with one person, let alone two. Lei Litian, thank you for stopping this little bastard. Lei Litian, you should know that this kid has caused a ruckus in my Huangji family and killed several important people in my family. There is no need for Lei Litian to do anything. After I capture this kid, I will naturally reward Lei Litian. Huang Wu cupped his hands towards Lei Litian, a look of fear in his eyes. Although he said that, he did not take the initiative to capture Zhuowen. Even though Zhuowen's display of power had shocked him, he could tell that Zhuowen's power was still far inferior to that of a god of creation. Therefore, Huang Wu didn't think much of Zhuowen. As long as he made a move, Zhuowen wouldn't be a match for him. Right now, Huang Wu was mainly afraid of Lei Litian. When Lei Litian chased after him, Huang Wu faintly felt that something was wrong. He knew that Lei Litian wanted to thoroughly investigate Zhuowen. Thinking of this, Huang Wu knew that the arrest warrant he had issued was a mistake. That arrest warrant had already made Lei Litian suspect that this Zhuowen had something good on him. Right now, Lei Litian didn't know what Zhuowen had that made Huang Wu drool, so he didn't act rashly. If Lei Litian knew that this kid had the powerful Huyi divine arrow, he wouldn't be so nice and would directly snatch it. Lei Litian, on the other hand, looked at Huang Wu with interest and laughed. This child is wanted by Brother Huang, so I naturally won't snatch his love. However, this child is extremely cunning. In order to prevent this child from escaping again, I will guard this place for Brother Huang. Otherwise, it won't be good if this child escapes again. After saying that, Lei Litian stepped on his Thunder God sword and landed not far away. He didn't make a move and just looked at Huang Wu and Zhuowen. Huang Wu's face turned ugly. He knew that Lei Litian was worried about him. Furthermore, what Huang Wu was most worried about was that when Zhuowen fought with him, he would directly take out the Huyi divine arrow. Once the Huyi divine arrow was exposed, no matter how shameless Lei Litian was, he would directly snatch it. Huang Wu knew that his cultivation was weaker than Lei Litian's, and he didn't have a Genesis-level artifact like Lei Litian. If Lei Litian made a move, he might not be a match for him. Let's end this quickly. After capturing this kid alive, we'll leave quickly. As long as we don't give this kid the chance to take out his blood-stained horn, that Lei Litian won't chase after us if he doesn't see that peerless monster. Huang Wu's mind was filled with thoughts. He immediately looked at Zhuowen and said, Zhuowen, I won't make things difficult for you. As long as you obediently follow me back, I can promise to spare your life. Although you're strong, you still can't compete with me. This is your only way out. Zhuowen looked at Huang Wu indifferently and sneered, Old fart, you're bullying the weak. You've already lost your face, haven't you? Now you're talking nonsense with me. Your words are bullshit to me. Do you think I'll believe you? Huang Wu was furious, but he forcefully suppressed it. He said in a low voice, "I'm a man of my word. If I can't keep my word." Huang Wu slowly opened his mouth. However, halfway through his sentence, he turned into a shadow and instantly appeared above Zhuowen's head. At some point, a huge blade half the length of a person had appeared in Huang Wu's right hand. The surface of the blade was covered in jewels and emitted a terrifying glow. The moment Huang Wu raised the blade, a golden radiance filled the sky and a huge scorching sun rose on the back of the blade. Scorching heat instantly assaulted him. Heat waves rolled and scorched him. Eternal grade artifact, tyrannical scorching sun. Not far away, Lei Litian silently watched all of this with a calm gaze. He was looking forward to seeing how Zhuowen would deal with Huang Wu's sudden sneak attack. In Lei Litian's opinion, Huang Wu's desire to capture this kid alive was very likely because of something on this kid's body. Moreover, this thing was definitely important and should be this kid's trump card. After all, Huang Wu was a creator. He would definitely be able to force out this kid's trump card. When the time came, Lei Litian really wanted to see what Huang Wu was coveting. Zhuowen secretly cursed Huang Wu for being despicable. He actually attacked without saying anything. Although Zhuowen's reaction wasn't slow, he was already hit by the tyrannical scorching sunday. His left hand was directly melted into steam by the scorching heat. After Huang Wu's successful attack, the long blade in his hand was like a tidal wave that constantly slammed towards Zhuowen. He was pressuring Zhuowen, not giving him any chance to retaliate. Huang Wu had no other choice. He could only force Zhuowen like this. Otherwise, it would be terrible if this kid took out the Huyi divine arrow. Lei Litian couldn't help but frown when he saw this scene. He saw through Huang Wu's intention. With Huang Wu's current offensive, he was afraid that he would soon kill Zhuowen. Moreover, Zhuowen was now in a completely passive position and didn't even have the chance to take out his trump card. Old bastard Huang Wu, don't blame me for being unrighteous. Even if I die today, I'll drag you down with me. I know you're here for this thing. Today, I'll use this thing to kill you, Zhuowen shouted. There was a spirit ring hanging in front of his chest. At this moment, the spirit ring was emitting a faint light. Clearly, there was something that Zhuowen wanted to take out. Huang Wu's pupils shrank to the size of needles. He couldn't care less and used his strongest attack. Suddenly, 9 scorching suns swept over from 9 directions and bombarded Zhuowen. Zhuowen let out a muffled groan and was blasted into a bloody mist. The spirit ring in front of his chest was skillfully grabbed by Huang Wu. Huang Wu looked at the spirit ring in his hand and was wild with joy. He didn't even look at Zhuowen, who was blasted into a bloody mist. Chapter 2799. Huang Wu felt aggrieved. Huang Wu's mind was completely focused on the spirit ring he had just snatched. From Zhuowen's last words, he could tell that the powerful treasure was hidden in the spirit ring. He was certain that this supreme treasure was definitely a divine artifact that surpassed the Genesis level. It was much more powerful than the lightning god's sword in the lightning god's garden. Otherwise, Zhuowen wouldn't have been able to kill an eternal overlord despite being so many levels above him. Even his third brother, a half-step Genesis overlord, had been killed by this kid. However, Huang Wu was very cautious. After he obtained the spiritual ring, he immediately put it away and cupped his hands towards Lei Litian in the distance. Lei Litian, I have already executed this child on the spot. This time, I thank Lei Litian for helping me check on him. I will repay this favor in the future. I will take my leave first. Lei Litian grinned. From Huang Wu's expression just now, he knew that Zhuowen's spiritual ring was definitely hiding something extraordinary. Otherwise, Huang Wu wouldn't have lost his composure after obtaining the spirit ring. Brother Huang, I am very curious about Zhuowen's spirit ring. Why don't you let me take a look? Lei Litian smiled. Huang Wu's expression changed drastically. He slowly retreated and laughed dryly. Brother Lei, you must be joking. There's nothing good in this spirit ring. Zhuowen is just Chaos Origin Master. What do you think his spirit ring has that will catch your eye? I'm just casually taking it and planning to give it to my descendants. Lei Litian's smile grew even brighter. As far as I know, Brother Huang's descendants have all fallen. You still have descendants to give. Huang Wu fell silent. His expression was ugly. Brother Huang, don't play riddles with me. Zhuowen should have something good on him. Otherwise, you wouldn't be thinking about him so much. Good things should always be shared. What's wrong with letting me take a look at this kid's spirit ring? I won't steal it from you. Lei Litian said indifferently. Huang Wu cursed Lei Litian's shamelessness in his heart. He would never hand over Zhuowen's spirit ring. The blood-stained horn was very powerful. As long as he had it, Lei Litian might not be his match. Thinking of this, Huang Wu calmed down a lot. He was very confident in the power of the blood-stained horn. Even if Lei Litian forced him now, he had the horn. It was enough to completely suppress Lei Litian. Brother Lei, we have no enmity, and I don't want to fall out with you. Perhaps you don't know what I have spirit ring. If I take it out, you can only run. As Huang Wu spoke, his soul consciousness entered Zhuowen's spirit ring. In an instant, he violently broke the restriction on the surface of Zhuowen's spirit ring, allowing him to see the space inside. However, when Huang Wu saw the space in the spiritual ring, he froze. He was so angry that he started trembling. At this moment, Lei Litian was surprised by Huang Wu's words. He laughed and said, Huang Wu, your wings have hardened. I'm very curious about what it is that makes you so confident. You're so arrogant in front of me. At this moment, Huang Wu's mood was as if he had eaten yellow lotus. He couldn't explain his bitterness. He quickly took out Zhuowen's spirit ring and threw it to Lei Litian. He quickly said, Brother Lei, I was tricked. There's nothing in this spirit ring. Zhuowen lied to us. Lei Litian took the spirit ring. After confirming that there was indeed nothing in the spirit ring, he crushed the spirit ring and looked at Huang Wu indifferently. Huang Wu, do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? You kept this spirit ring. There's nothing in it, so it can only be kept by you. Zhuowen was killed by you. This is the only spirit ring on his body. You said that there's nothing in this spirit ring? Do you really think I'm an idiot? Hand over the spirit ring and I can still forgive you. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Huang Wu's face was anxious. He already knew that he had been fooled, but Lei Litian would not believe his words. Who asked him to take the spirit ring and check it? Now, he would not be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. His divine sense swept towards the place where Zhuowen had exploded into a bloody mist. When he found that Zhuowen's aura was indeed completely gone, his heart became even more gloomy. What? You're not going to hand it over? Lei Litian's voice was calm, but the killing intent on his body was becoming more and more terrifying, as if it would explode at any time. Brother Lei, I, Huang Wu, am willing to swear to the heavens that there's nothing in this spirit ring. I don't have to lie to you now. Huang Wu explained. Lei Litian did not let it go and said, in order to prove yourself, take down your spirit ring and let me check it. If I find any clues, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Huang Wu's face was very ugly. His spirit ring was filled with treasures that he had collected for many years. How could he casually let others check it? Furthermore, Huang Wu knew Lei Litian's temperament the best. If he were to hand over his spirit ring, it would probably be taken away by Lei Litian immediately. He would not foolishly hand over his spirit ring. Huang Wu, are you not going to hand it over? Since you're not going to hand it over, then don't blame me for being impolite. Lei Litian snorted coldly. Immediately, the surrounding air became incomparably cold. Lei Litian stomped his right foot, and the thunder god sword beneath his feet descended like a bolt of lightning from the 9 heavens. With a su sound, it shot out towards Huang Wu. Huang Wu's face was ugly. He did not want to fight Lei Litian head-on. He immediately took out his flying divine tool and fled. You won't be able to escape. He had previously hidden a large portion of his soul in the spirit ring, and the spirit ring had turned into a Xiao Hei dot and hidden on a speck of dust not far away. The moment Zhuowen was killed by Huang Wu, a portion of Zhuowen's soul that was left in his body was also destroyed. Then, he used this portion of his soul in the dust to be reborn. However, the price was very high. After all, a portion of his soul had been destroyed, causing Zhuowen to suffer serious injuries. Lei Litian and Huang Wu did not expect that Zhuowen, whose body and soul had been destroyed, would actually be able to be reborn. If they knew, they would not have been so careless as to fight amongst themselves. Instead, they would have carefully searched the scene where Zhuowen was killed. These two people are so shameless, they almost killed me. If I don't pay a price, Zhuowen, will not be able to calm down. Chapter 2800. Terrifying killing intent rumble. Terrifying thunderbolts exploded, and the sky was covered by thunderbolts, forming a boundless sea of thunderbolts. At the core of the sea of lightning, Lei Litian rode the thunder god's sword, flying at lightning speed with a mighty aura. On the other hand, Huang Wu was trapped in the sea of lightning. He kept waving the long blade in his hand, and 9 blazing suns protected his body, resisting the attacks of the sea of lightning. Master Lei, what is the meaning of this? Huang Wu kept waving the long blade in his hand, and rays of dazzling golden light soared into the sky, shattering the lightning energy. However, from Huang Wu's situation, it could be seen that he was barely able to resist the lightning energy. Lei Litian's eyes were cold as he looked at Huang Wu indifferently and said, "Brother Huang, I just want to check your miniature world. After all, you have obtained Zhuowen's item. I just want to take a look out of curiosity, but you have repeatedly refused. This Lei's patience is very limited." Huang Wu felt bitter in his heart. He knew that Lei Litian was not going to let him go, but he could not hand over his spiritual ring for Lei Litian to check. With Lei Litian's character, once he handed over his spiritual ring, he would never be able to get it back. Lei Litian, don't force me. You and I are both Genesis Realm Masters. If I really want to escape, you can't stop me. Huang Wu said coldly. However, Lei Litian laughed out loud, and said, "Huang Wu, even if you can escape, I'm afraid you will have to pay a huge price. Why don't you hand over your spirit ring for me to check, and everyone will be harmonious? I, Lei Litian, guarantee that I will not touch the things in your spirit ring." Huang Wu sneered in his heart. He did not believe Lei Litian's words. "Huang Wu, I think you want to do this the hard way. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance." Lei Litian's eyes were gloomy. He took a step forward, and the thunder god's sword under his feet whistled as it flew towards Huang Wu. Wherever the thunder god's sword passed, lightning would explode. At this moment, it was as if lightning was everywhere in the world. Huang Wu's face changed. The long blade in his hand danced, and 9 blazing suns rose to resist the thunder god's sword. Bang bang bang! A series of explosions rang out as the lightning god's sword rapidly tore through the 9 blazing suns in front of it and arrived in front of Huang Wu. Clang! Huang Wu raised his long blade and slashed at the thunder god's sword. Suddenly, the golden light and the lightning intertwined with each other. The power was so strong that it was as if the entire world was about to collapse. An inconspicuous speck of dust was quietly attached to the surface of a rock in the distance. In the outside world, Zhuowen quietly set up a monitoring array formation on the surface of the meteorite and silently watched the battle between Huang Wu and Lei Litian. Because both of them were gods of creation, the battle between the two of them was extremely terrifying, so Zhuowen didn't dare to get too close. He only dared to watch from afar. Moreover, Zhuowen was also a little worried that if he got too close, the two of them might discover something unusual, so he only dared to watch from afar. The battle between Lei Litian and Huang Wu was undoubtedly extremely powerful and terrifying. However, Zhuowen could see that Lei Litian actually had the absolute advantage from this battle. Lei Litian's cultivation was higher than Huang Wu's, and the grade of the divine tool he used was also higher than Huang Wu's. There was no suspense in the battle between the two of them. After a few hundred rounds, Huang Wu's long blade was actually shattered by the thunder god's sword. The terrifying lightning sword passed through Huang Wu's right arm and destroyed it along with his shoulder. "Ah, Lei Litian, just you wait. I, Huang Wu, will remember this enmity." Huang Wu screamed miserably. Soon after, his body turned fiery red as if he had spontaneously combusted. Boom! Huang Wu didn't even think and fled. His speed was extremely fast, and he instantly disappeared from Lei Litian's line of sight. Lei Litian frowned slightly as he watched Huang Wu disappear, but he didn't chase after him. Just now, Huang Wu had burned his blood essence, and his speed instantly increased by a few hundred times. Even if Lei Litian relied on the Thunder God's sword, it would be difficult for him to catch up to Huang Wu's current speed. Unless Lei Litian also burned his blood essence. Lei Litian naturally wouldn't do that. The price of burning his blood essence was very high. After that, his strength would be greatly reduced, his injuries would be serious, and his cultivation might even drop. This kind of desperate move could only be used in a life-and-death situation. It was impossible for Lei Litian to use such a secret technique to chase after Huang Wu. Although Lei Litian was unwilling, he could only give up. Just as Lei Litian was about to leave, a terrifying killing intent suddenly enveloped his body, causing all the hairs on his body to stand on end. "Who is it?" Lei Litian suddenly shouted. He looked around and found that there was no one else around. He was surprised, but more than that, he was wary and vigilant. The killing intent became more and more terrifying, as if an incomparably vast mountain was crushing down on him. It was as if his body was being crushed. Cold sweat appeared on Lei Litian's forehead. His powerful divine sense began to search the surroundings, not letting go of even a speck of dust. Finally, he found something strange about a speck of dust on a meteorite thousands of miles away. He snorted coldly and took a step forward. His right hand formed a palm and slammed onto the meteorite. The terrifying lightning turned into a giant hand and slammed onto the meteorite, immediately shattering it into pieces. However, the moment the meteorite shattered, an inconspicuous black dot shot out and left the meteorite first. Lei Litian noticed the escaping black dot. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He stretched out his right hand and grabbed at the black dot. The black dot immediately threw out a punch. This punch was extremely huge, like a primitive planet. The wind was strong and the stars were moving. Boom. However, this punch was easily smashed into pieces by Lei Litian's palm. However, it also gave the black dot a chance to breathe and successfully escaped the range of Lei Litian's attack. A figure flew out from the black dot. His long hair fluttered in the wind. In his hand, a blood-stained horn had appeared at some point in time. The strong killing intent was emitted from this blood-stained horn. Zhuoan. The moment Lei Litian saw the figure clearly, his eyes widened and revealed a look of disbelief. Wasn't Zhuowen killed by Huang Wu? Huang Wu had clearly seen Zhuowen's body and soul being destroyed. How could Zhuowen appear in front of him in perfect condition? "You're not dead." Lei Litian's eyes were gloomy, but his attention was completely focused on the Huyi divine arrow in Zhuowen's hand. He felt an unprecedented sense of danger from this Huyi divine arrow. The killing intent on this Huyi divine arrow made even him tremble in fear, as if a knife was hanging on his neck. Chapter 2801. Killing Intent Unleashed. Great. Since you're still alive, this thing belongs to me. Lei Litian's eyes were soon replaced by ecstasy. He stomped his right foot on the Thunder God's sword, and terrifying lightning spread out. He turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared on the spot, whistling towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes were calm as he continued to stimulate the arrow. At the same time, he used the energy of the dragon vein in the outside world as the source, causing the killing intent of the arrow to reach an unprecedented level. Lei Litian frowned slightly. He could also sense the terrifying killing intent from Hu Yi's arrow, and it was even affecting his movements. However, he was a mid-stage lord of creation after all, and he also had a Genesis-grade divine weapon like the Thunder God's sword. Although the killing intent was terrifying, it wasn't enough to make him afraid. Zhuowen also felt Lei Litian's actions, and he knew that the killing intent of the arrow didn't affect him much. This was the first time Zhuowen had unleashed Hu Yi's divine arrow, yet someone wasn't too affected by its killing intent. He knew that this was because the gap between him and Lei Litian was too big. Thinking of this, Zhuowen took a deep breath and took out an ordinary-looking wooden bow from the outside world. Then, he placed the Hu Yi divine arrow on the bowstring and slowly pulled it back. Poochie. Zhuowen only drew the bowstring slightly, but the killing intent of Hu Yi's divine arrow instantly doubled. Zhuowen could feel the terrifying killing intent as if it were his own body, and he immediately suffered internal injuries. Moreover, the bowstring of the wooden bow was extremely heavy. Zhuowen only drew the bowstring a little, and he was already panting. One had to know that he cultivated the Pangu sacred body, and even he found it so difficult to draw the bowstring. This showed how extraordinary the Huyi divine bow was. Lei Litian also felt the doubled killing intent, and his eyes were filled with shock. But soon, the killing intent in his eyes became even more terrifying and sharp. He knew that the divine bow and divine arrow in the young man's hands were not ordinary items. Even his thunder god sword could not unleash such terrifying killing intent. He knew that these were definitely treasures that were of a higher level than a Genesis divine artifact. He had to get this item, and now he couldn't wait to kill this kid and take this treasure. Zhuowen stood on the space-time wheel and quickly retreated, barely avoiding Lei Litian's lightning attacks. His right hand slowly wanted to draw the bowstring again. Zhuowen used all his strength, the veins on his arms bulged, and his face looked extremely ferocious. Finally, the bowstring was drawn a little more, and the killing intent of the Huyi divine bow arrow at this moment, it was several times. That terrifying killing intent was as if it was real, it sealed the surrounding space, and formed a huge dragon. The dragon of the killing intent of the killing dragon, of the dragon of the world. Studio, Lei Litian's attack. Lei Litian's face was slightly ugly. The killing intent that was erupting from the Huyi divine arrow made even him feel uncomfortable and fearful. He had no doubt that if this arrow was shot out, even if he could block it, he would have to pay a huge price. I must kill this kid before this arrow is shot. Lei Litian's face was ferocious. With a leap, his speed increased by several times. The Thunder God's sword opened up a path in front of him, barely cutting through the terrifying killing intent of the dragon. He quickly closed the distance between him and Zhuowen. Open again. Zhuowen's eyes were bloodshot as he once again drew an arc. The veins on his arms all burst, and a bloody mist spread out, emitting a tragic smell. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the killing intent increased by more than 10 times. The killing intent formed 10 huge killing intent of the dragon, which roared out and instantly surrounded Lei Litian in front of him. At this moment, Lei Litian's expression finally changed. Now that the Huyi divine arrow had erupted with killing intent, he was truly terrified from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, the killing intent had increased by more than 10 times compared to before. It was simply too terrifying. Lei Litian looked at the rapidly retreating Zhuowen in front of him. He knew that if he wanted to get close to Zhuowen, he would need at least a few minutes. But now, the killing intent of the Huyi divine arrow in Zhuowen's hand had reached an extremely terrifying level, and it could explode at any time. Lei Litian had the intention to retreat. Retreat! Lei Litian did not even think as he immediately urged the Thunder God's sword to retreat. He did not dare to take this arrow head-on from Zhuowen. He knew that if he did, he would definitely be seriously injured and there was a risk of death. Moreover, he also noticed that Zhuowen had paid a huge price to shoot this arrow. As long as he dodged this arrow, this kid would not be a problem. At that time, he would kill this kid and then obtain this powerful monster. When Zhuowen saw that Lei Litian did not advance and instead retreated, he knew that Lei Litian was beginning to feel fear. Zhuowen's eyes were incomparably red. He completely ignored his hands and forcefully pulled the bowstring once again. At this moment, Zhuowen had pulled the bowstring to a third of the arc. The killing intent of the Huyi divine arrow had risen to an extremely terrifying level. Whoosh! At this moment, Zhuowen had also reached his limit. Even though he had the Pangu sacred body, he could not withstand the terrifying pulling force of the Huyi divine bow. The moment he released the bowstring, his hands exploded into 2 clouds of blood mist. Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and bloodless. His entire body almost collapsed because he could not withstand the terrifying killing intent. Fortunately, his self-healing ability was extremely strong. While he was collapsing, he was also constantly recovering. As a result, Zhuowen's body went back and forth between collapse and recovery. In the end, he barely managed to prevent his body from completely collapsing. The blood arrow flew across the sky. The killing intent seemed to break through the sky and firmly locked onto Lei Litian, who was constantly retreating. Lei Litian also felt the blood arrow flying towards him, as well as the terrifying killing intent that accompanied it. His heart was completely filled with fear. At this moment, the killing intent that the blood arrow carried was something that even he could not withstand. However, the blood arrow had firmly locked onto him. Moreover, its speed was too fast. Even if he wanted to escape, it would be difficult. Lightning seal! Lei Litian roared. The thunder god's sword in his hand suddenly blasted out. Terrifying lightning filled the sky. Then, these lightning bolts condensed into an indestructible lightning prison, wanting to trap the blood arrow that was flying across the sky. Unfortunately, the lightning seal could only block the blood arrow for a breath of time before it was penetrated by the blood arrow and dissipated into countless electric sparks. Lei Litian kept retreating. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead. He stared at the blood arrow that was flying towards him. In an instant, the thunder god's sword in his hand slashed out hundreds and thousands of swords. The dense sword light was like an incomparably thick sword wall that blocked the blood arrow. Boom! However, what Lei Litian did not expect was that the wall formed by the sword light could not block for even a breath of time and was pierced by the blood arrow. Lei Litian roared. He knew that continuing to retreat was not a solution. He took a step forward and clenched the thunder god's sword in his hand tightly. The moment the thunder god's sword collided with the blood arrow, an invisible wave of air spread out. The surrounding tens of billions of kilometers of space seemed to tremble. Catcher! The thunder god's sword actually shattered into countless pieces. Lei Litian frantically burned his blood essence to prevent the thunder god's sword from completely shattering. Chapter 2802. Lei Litian's death. Lei Litian continued to retreat as he desperately burned his blood essence. The thunder god's sword in his hand quickly slashed out, wanting to use this to stop the terrifying blood arrow from rushing over. However, as Lei Litian continued to retreat, the more despair he felt in his heart. This was because he realized that the killing intent from the blood arrow was becoming more and more terrifying, almost enveloping his entire body. It controlled every meridian in his body, every inch of his flesh and blood, causing all the blood in his body to tremble in fear. The shadow of death grew larger and larger in his heart. He knew that there was nothing he could do, that he could not block this blood arrow. Zhuowen, I am the master of the Thunder God Garden. If you order this blood arrow to stop, I will not bother with you about our past grudges. Lei Litian shouted loudly, and said to Zhuowen. His voice was filled with regret and begging for mercy, but his attitude was still unyielding and high and mighty. Zhuowen was currently severely injured. He sat cross-legged on a meteorite, coldly looking at Lei Litian, who was begging for mercy, indifferent. Zhuowen, what exactly do you want to stop this blood arrow? As long as you say it, I will definitely satisfy you. Seeing that Zhuowen was indifferent, Lei Litian's heart was filled with anxiety, and he hurriedly shouted out. I only want you to die. Zhuowen replied coldly, then closed his eyes and continued to recuperate. No matter how Lei Litian begged for mercy, Zhuowen simply ignored him. After retreating for tens of millions of miles, Lei Litian's mind was exhausted. With a boom, the thunder god sword in his hand completely dissipated, and Lei Litian was also extremely weak because he had burned too much blood essence. Zhuowen, even if I die, I won't let you off. Lei Litian roared as the blood arrow pierced through his chest. The terrifying killing intent was like a meat grinder as it exploded from within Lei Litian's body. Immediately after, Lei Litian's entire body was turned into a bloody mist, and he couldn't be any more dead. Zhuowen opened his eyes and slowly looked around Lei Litian's corpse. He found that Lei Litian had been completely annihilated, and even the small world on his body had collapsed. Everything inside had been annihilated. Zhuowen felt that it was a pity, but Xiao He suddenly flew out of the great world. Xiao He, what's wrong? Zhuowen looked at Xiao He in surprise. Brat, the power of your blood arrow is too terrifying, isn't it? It actually shattered the thunder god sword in Lei Litian's hands. This is a Genesis divine artifact, it will be of great benefit to my advancement. As Xiao He spoke, she hurriedly went to collect the scattered fragments of the thunder god's sword. At the same time, Xiao Hei pulled out the sacrificial death sword and the blood immortal sword to do the hard work. In order not to waste anything, this guy also went to collect the fragments of Huang Wu's long saber that had been shattered by the Thunder God sword. Although the long saber's grade was not as high as the Thunder God sword, it was still an eternal divine artifact. For a weapon cultivator like Xiao Hei, it was still very useful. Zhuowen did not pay attention to Xiao Hei's nagging. His eyes fell on the wooden bow in his hand. His hands had recovered, but the injuries on his body were not so easy to heal. After all, these injuries were caused by the terrifying killing intent of the Huyi divine arrow and the Huyi divine bow. He had to recuperate for a while to heal these injuries. As expected of the Huyi divine bow, I only pulled the bowstring 1/3 of the way, but the power of the Huyi divine arrow could reach such a terrifying level. Zhuowen muttered to himself. He was even more in awe of the power of the Huyi divine bow. However, he also knew that the side effects of the Huyi divine bow were too great. He could only rely on the Huyi divine bow to shoot one arrow. If he wanted to shoot a second arrow, his Pangu sacred body, which was only at the peak of the 4-star level, would not be able to withstand it. Even if his recovery ability was very strong, he would not be able to withstand it and would collapse. Zhuowen shook his head secretly. He knew that he was still too weak. If his Pangu sacred body could reach the 5-star or 6-star level, he would not be in such a sorry state today. At the same time, he also knew that the Huyi divine bow had a lot of implications. Unless it was a life-and-death situation, he could not use it casually. After all, the previous owner of the Huyi divine bow, Yu Xin, was exposed because of the Huyi divine bow and was killed by the 5 masters of creation. Thinking of Yu Xin, Zhuowen's face turned ugly. Now that he was in the depths of the Millennium Life-Sizer, he had to kill the murderer for Yu Xin within 1,000 years. Although Zhuowen relied on the Huyi divine bow and Huyi divine arrow to kill Lei Litian, who was a creator of the creation realm. However, he knew that once a cultivator cultivated to the 3rd step of the Dao validation realm, the difference between each small realm was extremely huge. Huang Wu was an early-stage creator, while Lei Litian was only a mid-stage creator. The difference between the two was not that big. However, Huang Wu was not a match for Lei Litian at all. In the end, he was forced to burn his essence blood to escape. From this, it could be seen that even if there was only a small difference in the 3rd step of the Dao validation realm, the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. Zhuowen's strength was only slightly stronger than a half-step creator. He was not even as strong as Huang Wu, let alone Lei Litian. However, he killed Lei Litian in the end. It was not that Zhuowen's strength was heaven-defying, but that Zhuowen's luck was too good. He was too rich. The power of the Huyi divine bow and Huyi divine arrow was many times stronger than the previous Huyi divine arrow. Moreover, Zhuowen's great world was rich in resources. Shooting the Huyi divine arrow was not difficult at all. If he did not have the Huyi divine arrow, Zhuowen would not have been able to fight against a terrifying expert like Lei Litian. Let's go to the Pill Array Immortal Alliance first. After Zhuowen put away Xiao Hei, the Blood Immortal Sword, and the Death Sacrifice Sword, he sat on the space-time roulette and disappeared. This time, he had broken off relations with the Lightning God's Garden. There was no place for the Pill Dao pageant. Zhuowen planned to go to the Pill Array Immortal Alliance to see if there was any other way to obtain a place for the Pill Dao pageant. This Pill Dao pageant was too important to him. He would not give up just like that. After Zhuowen left, the higher-ups of the Lightning God's ship, led by Lei Zishuan, were all in a state of panic on the deck of the Lightning God's ship. This was because they realized that Lei Litian's candle of life had suddenly extinguished not long ago. The extinguishing of the candle of life meant that Lei Litian had completely fallen. Miss Lei, what's going on? The Garden Master's candle of life has been extinguished. Did he really fall? Miss Lei, what happened to Garden Master Lei? That Huang Wu's realm is lower than Garden Master Lei. It's impossible for him to kill Garden Master Lei, right? Everyone was like ants on a hot pan as they discussed spiritedly. Their faces were filled with disbelief. At the same time, their hearts were filled with panic. Lei Litian was the pillar of the Lightning God's Garden. If Lei Litian really fell, the lightning god's garden would suffer a great loss. They might not be able to recover from this setback. Lei Zishuan was at a loss. She forced herself to calm down and said, Garden Master Lei might have met with an accident. He sent me a message saying that he has something to do and needs to leave for a period of time. Don't think too much about it. Prepare for this Pill Dao pageant. Everyone was doubtful, but they did not say anything. After discussing for a while, they dispersed. They did not really believe that Lei Litian had fallen. Chapter 2803. Arriving at the Pill Array Immortal Alliance in the ice-cold and pitch-black starry sky, a ray of light flashed past. If one looked carefully, this ray of light was a circular, disc-shaped flying divine tool. 4 figures stood on top of this flying divine tool. Big Brother Zhuoan, we're about to reach the Pill Array Immortal Alliance's territory. However, since you've broken off relations with the Lightning God Park, what about the quota for the Pill Dao Grand Competition? Tong Chimei stood behind Zhuoan, looking at the dot of light in front of them, and suddenly asked. These 4 people were Zhuoan's group. After killing Lei Litian, Zhuoan summoned Tong Chimei, Fire Plume, and Steel Plume from the outside world to travel together. Although the spacetime roulette speed couldn't be compared to a huge flying ship, it only took them 10 days to arrive at the Pill Array Immortal Alliance's territory. I'll think about the quota for the Pill Dao Grand Competition after I enter the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. Perhaps I'll have a chance. Zhuoan sighed softly. During this period of time, he was indeed distressed about the quota for the Pill Dao Grand Competition. Generally, the quota for the Pill Dao Grand Competition was in the hands of Dao Palaces or above. Therefore, if Zhuoan wanted a quota, he had to represent a Dao Palace. Now that Zhuoan had completely broken off relations with the Lightning God Park, he had to find another Dao Palace if he wanted a quota. Zhuoan didn't have any acquaintances in the host region. The only 2 Dao Palaces he knew were the Huangji aristocratic family and the Lightning God Park. Moreover, both of them had fallen out. He also knew that it would be difficult for him to obtain a quota. Fortunately, there was still half a month before the Pill Dao Grand Competition began. Zhuoan still had time. Half a day later, Zhuoan had completely entered the Pill Array Immortal Alliance's territory. The Pill Array Immortal Alliance's territory was very large. It was much larger than the Huangji aristocratic family and the Lightning God Park. Moreover, Zhuoan could clearly feel that there were powerful array restrictions everywhere in the Pill Array Immortal Alliance's territory. However, these formations and restrictions were all in a closed state. Once these formations and restrictions were activated, Zhuoan knew that even he would be in danger. Zhuoan could feel that the level of these closed array formations and restrictions was very high. The lowest level was at the eternal grade, while the highest level of array formations couldn't be seen through by Zhuoan. However, Zhuoan knew that they had to be at the eternal grade or above. When they entered the Pill Array Immortal Alliance, Zhuoan discovered that the number of flying ships around them had increased. They were densely packed and were flying towards the core region of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance from all directions. Immortal Alliance's territory. Immortal Alliance's Pill Immortal Alliance's Palace. The Immortal Alliance's Alliance, Immortal Alliance, the Immortal of the Immortal Palace of Alliance's Immortal Palace Alliance's Palace was. When Zhuoan arrived at the entrance of the Pill Array Immortal City, he discovered that the city gate was currently bustling with activity. Zhuoan discovered that the conditions to enter the Pill Array Immortal City were very simple. You either had to be a heavenly fate-grade pill refiner or an array Dao God Master. Otherwise, you had to pay an exorbitant amount of heavenly Dao origin crystals. Most of the cultivators at the city gate weren't pill refiners or array Dao God Masters. They could only pay the exorbitant amount. Zhuoan was coincidentally a heavenly fate-grade pill refiner. Therefore, he passed the entrance test. Pill refiners and array Dao God Masters had the privilege of bringing 3 people. Therefore, Zhuoan didn't have to pay anything. He was able to bring Fire Plume and company into the Immortal City. Moreover, before Zhuoan entered the city gate guard enthusiastically handed a jade token to Zhuoan. He also introduced to Zhuowen that only heavenly fate-grade pill refiners and array Dao God Masters could receive this jade token. As long as one had this jade token, one would have great discounts when shopping or staying in the Pill Array Immortal City. Big Brother Zhuo, it seems like the Pill Array Immortal City really respects pill refiners and array Dao God Masters. Didn't you see how the guard's attitude changed when he found out you were a heavenly fate-grade pill refiner? Tong Chimei said excitedly. Zhuowen smiled. The Pill Array Immortal Alliance is a gathering place for pill refiners and array Dao God Masters. Naturally, pill refiners are highly respected here. However, this privilege is only for those above heavenly fate grade. Those below heavenly fate grade probably don't have this privilege. Fire Plume also nodded and interrupted. The Pill Array Immortal Alliance has the largest number of pill refiners in the host region. There are simply too many pill refiners below heavenly fate grade. They can only be at the bottom. Only pill refiners above heavenly fate grade can enjoy the corresponding privileges. Moreover, there are several Genesis grade pill refiners in the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. Even the 5 Dao Palaces of the host region don't dare to neglect these pill refiners. Zhuowen nodded. The cultivation of alchemy and formation Dao was much more difficult than the cultivation of martial Dao. Generally speaking, the amount of effort and resources required to reach the level of a Genesis alchemist and formation divine master was far above that of a Genesis alchemist. Moreover, in the Xian Mi heavenly region, eternal grade god pills were already very rare. Genesis grade god pills above eternal grade were simply priceless. One could see how rare eternal grade god pills were from Huang Wu's pained expression when he took out the eternal grade god pill. If Genesis grade god pills were so rare, then the status of a Genesis grade pill refiner who could refine Genesis grade god pills was unimaginable. Array Dao and Pill Dao were the same. A Genesis grade array Dao God Master who could cultivate to the Genesis grade was definitely an existence that many factions had to respect. Even Dao Palaces had to treat them with respect. As for a creation grade pill refiner, it was said that the Pill Array Immortal Alliance also had one. He was the founder of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. However, such an existence had not appeared in the world for a long time and rarely refined pills. The reason why there were rumors of such an existence in the Pill Array Immortal Alliance was because several Dao Palace sect masters had personally come to the Pill Array Immortal Alliance to ask for creation-grade god pills. Chapter 2804. A sudden quota. It's like this. Isn't the pill competition of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance about to begin? I'm a rogue cultivator, but I also want to participate in the pill competition. Do you have any way to do so? Zhuowen looked at the shop assistant and asked. The shop assistant was stunned. Soon after, he looked at Zhuowen with a strange gaze and said, "Sir, I see that you're a heavenly fate grade alchemist. You're more than qualified to participate in the pill competition. Why didn't you just find a random Dao palace and become a guest alchemist? That way, you should be able to get a quota." Zhuowen shook his head and said regretfully, "I'm in seclusion all year round, so I don't really care about these things. Later on, I heard about the pill competition, but it was already too late. That's why I missed the chance to join a Dao palace." The shop assistant was a little distressed. He said, "Sir, this pill competition isn't just related to the Pill Array Tower. It's also related to the Divine Medicine Valley. It's very unlikely for a rogue cultivator to obtain a quota for the pill competition alone." Zhuowen knew about the Pill Array Tower. It was said that the winner of this pill competition would have the chance to enter the Pill Array Tower to comprehend the great Dao of pill arrays. However, this was the first time Zhuowen had heard about the Divine Medicine Valley. I wonder what's going on with the Divine Medicine Valley? I would like to ask this brother to clear my doubts. Zhuowen took out a high-grade Heavenly Law Origin crystal and handed it to the shop assistant. His eyes were filled with curiosity. The shop assistant accepted the high-grade Heavenly Law Origin crystal without any hesitation. He was extremely excited. He secretly thought that the alchemist in front of him was really generous. However, he spoke even more enthusiastically about the Divine Medicine Valley. After listening to the shop assistant's explanation, Zhuowen finally knew what the Divine Medicine Valley was. It was said that the Pill Array Immortal Alliance had spent countless years cultivating the Divine Medicine Valley. It was said that there were all kinds of divine medicines growing in the Divine Medicine Valley. Among them, there were Genesis grade and creation grade divine medicines. However, even in the Divine Medicine Valley, these two grades of divine medicines were precious medicinal ingredients. They were very difficult to find. This time, the Pill Array Immortal Alliance had taken out 1,000 slots to enter the Divine Medicinal Garden, opening the door for the various powers of the host region. It was said that the top 50 alchemists who were participating in the Pill Refinement Grand Assembly this time were allocated these 1,000 alchemists. The higher one's ranking was, the more alchemists would be allocated. It was precisely because of the opening of the Divine Medicine Valley that the 5 great Dao palaces of the Eastern Dao region had sent their own alchemists to participate in the Pill Grand Assembly. The competition this time could be said to be extremely intense. Of course, for the sake of ensuring fairness, the conditions to participate in the Pill Grand Assembly this time had to be at the Genesis realm or below. Otherwise, the Pill Grand Assembly would be unfair. Zhuowen wasn't particularly interested in the Divine Medicine Valley. He had a large number of first and second step Dao validation divine medicines in his great world, and he even had a Genesis divine medicine. Zhuowen knew that the Divine Medicine Valley was nurtured by the Pill Array Immortal Alliance, so there was definitely a limit to how much one could harvest there. Unless it was a Genesis grade or a creation grade, Zhuowen wasn't very interested in the other divine medicines. Zhuowen wasn't very interested, but that didn't mean that the other powers weren't. After all, Zhuowen was only one person, and those powers were formed by many cultivators. Although the total amount of divine medicines in those powers might be much more than Zhuowen's, it would be pitifully little if it was evenly distributed. Therefore, even Dao palaces wouldn't let go of this opportunity to harvest divine medicines in the Divine Medicine Valley. Dao Palace forces entered the Divine Herb Valley in hopes of getting lucky. It would be a great opportunity if they could obtain a Genesis or Destina-level divine herb. This was because divine herbs like this could be counted on one's fingers even in Dao Palace forces. They were extremely rare. Zhuowen's main objective this time was actually the Pill Array Pagoda. The Pill Array Pagoda contained the Pill Array Great Dao. Perhaps it could really allow Zhuowen to see the third step of the Pill Array realm. Zhuowen was very clear that Moyan Wushang's soul was currently lacking 6 desires. At the very least, he would need to reach the third step of the Pill Array realm before he was qualified to try to treat him. Moreover, if Zhuowen could obtain first place in the pill competition, he would definitely attract the attention of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. Wasn't there a creation grade pill master in the Pill Array Immortal Alliance? If he obtained first place in the pill competition, he might be able to invite this creation grade pill master to treat Moyan Wushang. Regardless of the reason, Zhuowen was determined to obtain first place in the pill competition. Moreover, he relied not only on his pill Dao level, but also on the powerful pill art in the mysterious pill book. Although he was only a Heaven's Mandate grade alchemist, if he relied on the alchemy arts in the mysterious alchemy book, Zhuowen had a chance to refine a profound grade divine pill. Although the failure rate was very high, once he succeeded, the quality of the pill would definitely be exceptional. It should be known that even a Xuanji grade alchemist would find it very difficult to refine a special grade Xuanji grade divine pill. Moreover, the failure rate of an ordinary Xuanji grade alchemist refining a Xuanji grade divine pill was quite high. It would be much easier for an eternal grade alchemist to refine a Xuanji grade divine pill. The success rate of eternal grade pill masters refining eternal grade divine pills was the same as mystery grade pill masters. It was also very low. However, Zhuowen was different. As long as he advanced to become an alchemist of the corresponding level, then his success rate of concocting divine pills of the corresponding level would always be close to 100%. Furthermore, the divine pills that he concocted would basically all be of the highest quality, unique grade. Although Zhuowen was only a Heaven's Mandate grade pill master, entering the top 50 of the pill competition wouldn't be a problem. If his pill Dao level broke through to the mystery grade before the pill competition, it wouldn't be impossible for him to obtain first place in the pill competition. This Divine Medicine Valley is indeed not bad. If I could participate in this pill competition, Entering the top 50 wouldn't be a problem at all. Unfortunately, I don't have a quota. Zhuowen sighed helplessly and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. When the shop assistant heard Zhuowen's sigh, a trace of disapproval appeared in the depths of his eyes. Zhuowen was indeed a Heaven's Mandate grade pill master. However, it would be very difficult for him to obtain first place in the pill competition. In the shop assistant's opinion, Zhuowen was simply boasting. However, he didn't dare to refute Zhuowen. After all, he was only a small shop assistant in the inn. There was a big gap between his status and that of a Heaven's Mandate grade pill master. So, he naturally didn't dare to speak his mind. You said you can enter the top 50 of the pill competition this time? Suddenly, an excited voice came from the table behind Zhuowen. Zhuowen was surprised. He turned around and saw a young woman sitting at the table behind him. This woman looked to be about 24 or 25 years old. At this moment, she was so excited that her face was rosy and two small canine teeth were exposed. She looked very cute. Zhuowen looked at this unfamiliar woman with some doubt and said, "Yes, if I can participate in this pill competition, I can indeed enter the top 50. That's great. Hello, my name is Xia Qinfan. You can call me Little Xia. May I know your name, senior brother?" The woman called Xia Qinfan introduced herself as if they were very close. Zhuowen saw that this woman didn't have any evil intentions. So, he introduced himself as well. "So, it's senior brother Zhuo. If senior brother Zhuo is really sure that you can enter the top 50 of the pill competition this time, I can give you a quota," Xia Qinfan said excitedly. Chapter 2805. Xia Qinfan senior brother Zhuo, there's no need to be surprised. I'm the daughter of the Taisui Sword Faction's sect master. I came here to find a suitable alchemist to represent our Taisui Sword Faction in the pill competition. Since senior brother Zhuo is so confident that you can enter the top 50, I would like to invite senior brother Zhuo to represent our Taisui Sword Faction in the pill competition. Xia Qinfan was clearly an impatient person. Before Zhuowen could say anything, she had already interrupted Zhuowen and announced her objective. Zhuowen was startled. Soon after, the stone in his heart finally fell. He also did not expect that he would actually obtain the quota to participate in the Pill Grand Assembly so easily just by sighing with emotion. Since Xia Qinfan had a spot to participate in the pill competition, the Taisui Sword Faction she mentioned should be a Dao Palace level faction. "You're from the Taisui Sword Faction?" Fire Plume looked at Xia Qinfan in surprise. "Fire Plume, is there a problem?" Zhuowen looked at Fire Plume and asked. Fire Plume shook his head and said, "The Taisui Sword Faction is indeed a Dao Palace level faction. However, because their sect master was seriously injured several hundred years ago and fell into a near-death state, the faction fell into chaos. After several hundred years of internal strife, it seems like it's about to fall into a Dao Palace level faction. Moreover, the Taisui Sword Faction's internal strife is very serious. The Taisui Sword Faction's Taisui Sword Faction." Fire Plume didn't continue speaking. However, Xia Qinfan's beautiful eyes darkened. "Senior brother Zhuo, although our Taisui Sword Faction has declined, and we might not be able to give you a large reward, as long as you can enter the top 50, we'll only take one spot. The rest will belong to you. How about it?" Xia Qinfan hurriedly said. Zhuowen knew that the majority of Dao Palace level forces would offer a very large reward in order to rope in higher level alchemists. Their goal was to have these high-level alchemists participate in the Pill Grand Assembly on their behalf and obtain a good ranking. Even when Zhuowen had participated in the pill competition on behalf of the Lightning God Park, the Lightning God Park had given him special privileges as a guest alchemist. They had even symbolically given him some good divine herbs. It was just that Lei Zishuan didn't give him a placing token back then, saying that she would give it to him once they reached the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. From the looks of it, Lei Zixuan and Lei Litian had long harbored ill intentions towards Zhuowen. Although the Taisui Sword Faction was a Dao Palace level faction, due to their internal strife, they had already exhausted all of their resources. They probably couldn't even afford to hire a single alchemist. It was no wonder that the slot had fallen into his hands so easily. "It's fine. As long as I can participate in this pill-tempering grand assembly, it doesn't matter if I don't need any compensation. Zhuowen was magnanimous. His goal was only to obtain a spot. With his current wealth, the rewards from the Taisui sword faction were not enough for him. Hearing this, Xia Qinfan was pleasantly surprised. She hurriedly cupped her hands and thanked Zhuowen. Zhuowen waved his hand to stop Xia Qinfan and said, "Miss Xia, you claim that you have a spot in your hands. Can you let me have a look?" Xia Qinfan hurriedly took out a sparkling and translucent bamboo strip from her spirit ring and handed it to Zhuowen. "This is the entry token for the main venue of the pill competition. As long as you have this bamboo strip, you have the qualifications to participate in the pill competition. Senior brother Zhuo, take this. After you participate in the pill competition, you just have to report the name of the Taisui sword faction." After saying this, Xia Qinfan hurriedly left the restaurant. Zhuowen looked at Xia Qinfan with some surprise. Xia Qinfan had given him a placing token, but she didn't bring him to the Taisui sword faction's encampment. She just left like this. This was too careless. Zhuowen felt that Xia Qinfan seemed to have some hidden troubles. Therefore, after Xia Qinfan left, he secretly planted a divine sense imprint on her body. That little girl might have secretly taken out this entry token. Just look at how sneaky she is. You can tell from her sneaky manner. However, I didn't expect this little girl to trust you so much. Just based on your words, she gave you the placing token. Fire Plume also felt that it was very strange. She felt that this Xia Qinfan trusted Zhuowen too much. After all, this was the first time they had met. I'll follow her and take a look. The three of you should go back to the inn and rest. In the next few days, help me pay attention to whether or not Huangji family's Huangwu has returned. Zhuowen dropped this sentence and quietly left. Xia Qinfan stealthily turned through several remote alleys and finally arrived at an ordinary inn. Her eyes spun around. After hesitating for a moment, she quietly walked into the inn. However, just as Xia Qinfan walked to the entrance, a thick palm stretched out and grabbed her right hand. "Xia Qinfan, did you secretly take away a placing token? Why do I only have 3 placing tokens here?" This was an extremely sturdy middle-aged man. He stared coldly at Xia Qinfan and spoke in a loud voice. Behind this middle-aged man were several cultivators with powerful auras. They all looked at Xia Qinfan with unfriendly gazes. Xia Qinfan coldly said, "Jiang Mo, why are you suspecting me?" The middle-aged man named Jiang Mo coldly snorted and said, "The placing tokens have always been in my room. After one of them was lost, I searched the others but didn't find any. Moreover, you just happened to go out. Who else could it be other than you?" Xia Qinfan, before the sect master went into seclusion, he entrusted you to my care. I did my best to take care of you, but you are so stubborn. If my Taisui sword sect were to be handed over to someone as stubborn as you in the future, it would definitely bring shame to the Taisui sword sect. Now, hand over the nameplate." Xia Qinfan was trembling with anger. She coldly said, "Jiang Mo, don't go too far. The placing token was obtained by my father. What right do you have to distribute it? I'll make it clear to you now. I've already given that placing token to someone else. A true alchemist who can enter the top 50 is much better than those trash alchemists you found." When Xia Qinfan said this, the expressions of the people behind Jiang Mo turned ugly. They were even flustered and exasperated. Obviously, these people were the alchemists who were going to represent the Taisui sword faction in the Pill Grand Assembly. Now that Xia Qinfan called them trash, it would be strange if their expressions were good. Don't tell me you can find a profound grade alchemist or an eternal grade alchemist. Don't joke around. Can you find an alchemist of this grade? Hurry up and tell me the name and location of that alchemist. I'll go and get it back now, Jiang Mo said with a cold smile. Xia Qinfan turned her head away and completely ignored Jiang Mo. Jiang Mo was flustered and exasperated. He raised his right hand and was about to slap Xia Qinfan's face. However, he was stopped by an aged voice. "Jiang Mo, that's enough. Since the placing token has already been given away, there's no need to pursue the matter. Let's stop here." A stooped old man walked out of the inn. This old man was sickly and looked as if he didn't have long to live. However, his eyes were extremely bright. When the old man spoke, Jiang Mo frowned slightly. He sheepishly withdrew his right hand and cupped his hands towards the old man. So it's the Supreme Elder. Since the Supreme Elder has said so, I won't pursue the matter any further. The sickly old man nodded and slowly pulled Xia Qinfan into the inn. Chapter 2806. Improving one's alchemy skills. After returning to the inn, Zhuowen fell into deep thought. The situation in Xia Qinfan's Taisui sword faction was unclear. The middle-aged man called Jiang Mo was merely a Heaven's Mandate master. In a Dao Palace-level faction like the Taisui sword faction, he was at most a steward. Xia Qinfan was the daughter of the sect master, but Jiang Mo had been rude to her at the entrance of the inn. He had scolded and beaten Xia Qinfan at every turn. This made Zhuowen realize that the faction of the Taisui sword faction's sect master was weak. Otherwise, Jiang Mo wouldn't have dared to be so impudent. On the other hand, Zhuowen could not see through the Supreme Elder who had suddenly appeared. The Grand Elder's aura wasn't weak. He should be an eternal overlord, much stronger than Jiang Mo. In terms of status, the Grand Elder was definitely much higher than Jiang Mo. However, although Jiang Mo was respectful when the Grand Elder appeared, it wasn't the kind of respect a subordinate would show to a superior. Instead, it was a forced show of respect with a trace of disdain. Moreover, the Grand Elder was an eternal overlord. His strength was much higher than Jiang Mo's. Although he had stopped Jiang Mo from scolding Xia Qinfan, he only took Xia Qinfan away. He didn't punish Jiang Mo accordingly. The Grand Elder seems to be afraid of Jiang Mo. Zhuowen muttered to himself. He guessed that Jiang Mo must have some background. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so impudent in front of the sect master's daughter and the Grand Elder. Thinking of this, Zhuowen shook his head inwardly. He shouldn't meddle in the Taisui sword faction's private affairs. However, Xia Qinfan had given him a spot in the pill pageant when he needed it the most. He owed Xia Qinfan a favor. After the pill pageant ended, he would help Xia Qinfan if he had the chance. It could be considered as repayment for the favor of giving him a spot. However, he had to go into seclusion now to improve his alchemy skills. With his current alchemy skills, it wouldn't be difficult for him to enter the top 50 of the pill pageant. However, his goal was the pill array pagoda. This meant that he had to obtain first place in the pill pageant. If he wanted to take first place, he had to raise his alchemy skills to the next level within this half a month and reach the mystic level. Otherwise, it would be very difficult. Zhuowen took out the Emperor Pill Furnace and ignited the divine flame. He planned to use this half a month to refine a profound grade divine pill. What he chose this time was a relatively simple Xuanzhi-level divine pill called the Taishen Yuanshan pill. The main effect of this divine pill was to assist profound secrets cultivators in their cultivation. The Taishen primordial spirit increasing pill contained pure energy that was much easier to absorb than the energy in heavenly Dao origin crystals. Using the Taishen elemental spirit increasing pill to cultivate, Xuanzhi's main cultivation efficiency would be greatly increased, and his cultivation time would be shortened. The Taishen primordial spirit increasing pill was considered a more basic divine pill among the Xuanzhi-level divine pills. The medicinal herbs needed were also quite common, so the refining difficulty was naturally not high. Many Heaven's Mandate pill masters would choose to refine this Taishen increasing spirit pill to practice when they were advancing to the profound grade. Before starting to refine the divine pill, Zhuowen informed Fire Plume, Tongchime, and Steel Plume in advance not to disturb him before the start of the pill grand assembly. At the same time, he also spent a lot of effort to set up many array formations and restrictions in the room to prevent unexpected situations from happening. When refining the first batch of Taishen increasing spirit increasing pill, Zhuowen was very cautious and the refining process was very successful. However, during the refining process, because he did not control the heat well, it led to the explosion of the furnace. With the mysterious alchemy book's alchemy arts, Zhuowen's refinement of divine herbs was extremely pure, far surpassing that of ordinary alchemists. It was precisely because of the high purity of the divine herbs that he refined that the quality of the divine pills he refined each time reached the top grade. Regarding the first failure, Zhuowen was not discouraged. Instead, he summed up the reasons for the failure and reopened the furnace. The Taishen increasing spirit increasing pills medicinal herbs might be very precious to ordinary alchemists, but for Zhuowen, it was not worth mentioning. In his big world, there was no lack of medicinal herbs for the second step of Dao confirming. Not to mention the Taishen Yuanshan pill, which was an ordinary Xuanji level divine pill. Even the top Xuanji level divine pill like the second revolution Red Sun divine pill had a lot of medicinal herbs in Zhuowen's macro world. In the following time, Zhuowen was completely crazy about refining the Taishen increasing spirit increasing pill. He did not feel the slightest pity for the wasted divine herbs. Every time he failed, Zhuowen summed up the reasons for the failure in a timely manner. It was these repeated failures that allowed Zhuowen's alchemy skills to improve rapidly. In just 10 days, Zhuowen failed a total of 50 times and wasted 50 batches of Taishen increasing spirit increasing pills divine herbs. This was a huge loss, and ordinary alchemists could not afford to waste it. 50 batches of Taishen increasing spirit increasing pills medicinal herbs were all wasted just like this. Not to mention ordinary alchemists, even ordinary Dao Palace level forces would be hurt. After all, if these 50 batches of Taishen increasing spirit increasing pills medicinal herbs were refined by a Taishen increasing spirit increasing pills medicinal herbs, even if the success rate was only 10%. The price of a Taishen increasing spirit increasing pill was extremely high in the market. The value of so many Taishen increasing spirit increasing pill was simply a huge fortune. Looking at the entire host region, perhaps only alchemists like Zhuowen, who had a huge amount of divine herbs, were willing to squander divine herbs like this in order to improve their alchemy skills as quickly as possible. Zhuowen was also helpless. 50 batches of Taishen increasing spirit increasing pills medicinal herbs were wasted just like this. He was also pained. If it was in normal times, he would not be so wasteful. But now was a critical moment, and the pill tempering assembly was about to begin. He had no choice but to do this. On the 51st attempt, Zhuowen's eyes were bright and full of expression as he stared at the Emperor pill furnace. After 50 failures, he had accumulated enough experience and concluded many of the reasons for his failures. Moreover, there were only 7 or 8 days left until the pill tempering assembly. This time, he had to succeed. Zhuowen took out another batch of Taishen increasing spirit increasing pills medicinal herbs and ignited the divine fire under the purification furnace. With a wave of his sleeve, he threw the medicinal herbs into the furnace one by one. His spiritual sense controlled the divine fire as his right hand pinched an alchemy seal. He had done this so many times that it had almost become an instinct. At this moment, his movements were as smooth as flowing water. The purification process was very smooth. Moreover, Zhuowen was surprised to find that the concentration of the divine herbs had reached more than 99%, almost 100%. After the purification was completed, Zhuowen's gaze fell on the Emperor pill turtle beside the Emperor pill furnace. The Emperor pill turtle chuckled and spat out a mouthful of divine fire from the bottom of the furnace. The level of the Emperor pill turtle's divine fire was very high. Moreover, it was compatible with the Emperor pill furnace. It was of great help to the success rate of refining pills. Zhuowen threw the purified medicinal liquid into the Emperor pill furnace. His spiritual sense controlled the divine fire as his hands pinched an alchemy seal. Chapter 2807. At the pill rhythm assembly time passed second by second, and in a flash, 3 days had passed. In these 3 days, the imperial pill furnace had yet to explode. Zhuowen's eyes lit up with joy. In the past, the longest he had lasted in the alchemy segment was 6 hours before the Emperor pill furnace exploded due to an uneven heat. But this time, there was no sign of the furnace exploding at all. He knew that success was in sight. Another 2 days passed. The lid of the furnace was enshrouded in a mysterious greenish-yellow aura. A rich medicinal fragrance filled the room, rising in spirals like an immortal realm. Smelling this medicinal fragrance, Zhuowen felt like he was floating and ascending to immortality. Taking a breath, the turbid air in his internal organs seemed to be dispelled. On the 6th day, the lid of the furnace began to shake irregularly. Immediately, a surge of medicinal aura rushed out of the lid. A whistle sounded, echoing in the room, only to see 12 streaks of light burst out from the imperial pill furnace. These 12 streaks of light seemed to be sentient. They actually shot off in 12 different directions, wanting to escape. Bang bang bang. However, Zhuowen had already set up layers of formation restrictions in the room. The 12 streaks of light collided with the restrictions, emitting strange cracking sounds. Zhuowen snorted coldly. Opening his hand, he grabbed at those 12 streaks of light. Those 12 streaks of light wanted to resist, but in the end, they were just medicinal pills. Although they were sentient, they did not have the strength of the Lord of Profound Secrets. Of course, even if the 12 Lord of Profound Secrets appeared in front of Zhuowen, Zhuowen was not afraid. He could still suppress them with one palm. Putting away the 12 streaks of light, Zhuowen opened his right hand. In his palm, 12 round medicinal pills lay quietly. Their brilliance was boundless, emitting an extraordinary aura. Really didn't expect the profound grade divine pills to already be sentient. The moment the pills were formed, such a phenomenon actually appeared. Zhuowen's eyes shone. This was his first time refining a profound grade divine pill, so he was rather interested in the phenomenon of pill formation. And from the moment he successfully refined the Taishen essence increasing pill, Zhuowen's alchemy level also underwent a qualitative change. All the doubts in his heart regarding alchemy in the past, at this moment, he understood without a teacher. Dong. At this moment, the distant sound of a bell could be heard from outside, ringing in their ears and directly entering their hearts. Zhuowen stood up. He knew that the Pill Array Immortal Alliance's Pill Grand Assembly was about to begin. When he opened the door, Fire Plume and Tong Chimay were already waiting outside. Seeing that Zhuowen had finally come out, the three of them revealed a trace of relief between their brows. Brother Zhuo, the main venue of this year's Pill Grand Assembly is the plaza in front of the Pill Array Tower. We should set off now, Fire Plume said. Zhuowen nodded. Before he left, he asked Fire Plume, Miss Fire Plume, has Huang Wu returned to the Huangji family's team? Fire Plume nodded and said, 3 days after you went into seclusion, Huang Wu did indeed return. However, he went into seclusion as soon as he returned. I think his injuries are not light. Speaking of Huang Wu, Fire Plume and the others thought of Lei Litian from the Lightning God's Garden, and their gazes towards Zhuowen became even more reverent. Previously, in Zhuowen's great world, they had personally seen Zhuowen kill Lei Litian. Lei Litian was the Lightning God's Garden Master, a mid-stage god of creation. In the host territory, he could be considered an elite of the older generation. In their eyes, he was like a celestial being that could only be seen from afar. However, such an elite had actually died right in front of their eyes. The shock in their hearts back then could not be described with words. Zhuowen was very clear about Huang Wu's injuries. Previously, Huang Wu and Lei Litian had a disagreement, and he had been severely injured by Lei Litian. In the end, he had been forced to burn his blood essence to escape. This could be said to be one disaster after another. If Huang Wu wanted to recover from his injuries, he would not be able to do so in a short time. Zhuowen guessed that Huang Wu's current strength was most likely only slightly stronger than a half-step god of creation. If he encountered Huang Wu again, Zhuowen would not even need to rely on the Huyi divine arrow. He would be able to completely suppress and even kill Huang Wu. The group of 4 arrived near the Pill Formation Pagoda, and they discovered that the surrounding area was bustling with activity. Although it was very noisy near the Pill Formation Pagoda, after careful observation, Zhuowen discovered that the surrounding cultivators were all gathered in orderly groups. Zhuowen's group was the most irregular. He knew that this was a gathering place for itinerant cultivators, and it was very chaotic. Looking around, Zhuowen discovered a few familiar faces. For example, the Huangji family, the Lightning God's Garden, and the Taisui Sword Sect. Among them, Zhuowen saw a gloomy Huang Wu in the Huangji family's group. Huang Shan was beside Huang Wu. On the other hand, The Lightning Gods group was completely silent. Lei Zishuan led a group of higher-ups, and they all had gloomy expressions. This was because ever since Lei Litian chased after Zhuoan a month ago, he had completely disappeared and had yet to return. Coupled with the fact that Lei Litian's candle of life had been extinguished, news of Lei Litian's death had spread like wildfire, and everyone in the Lightning Gods Park was abuzz. It was not that Lei Zishuan did not find Huang Wu to ask about Lei Litian's whereabouts, but she was scared off by Huang Wu's terrifying killing intent. If the Pill Formation Immortal Alliance did not allow private fights, Lei Zishuan did not doubt that Huang Wu would attack her. She really wanted to know what had happened a month ago, but Huang Wu was too lazy to explain to her. As for that Zhuoan, in Lei Zishuan's eyes, he was already a thing of the past. She subconsciously ignored that Zhuoan. From Lei Zishuan's point of view, Zhuoan must have died more than a month ago. Even if Lei Litian had met with a mishap, she did not blame Zhuoan for Lei Litian's disappearance. Lei Zishuan could not be blamed for ignoring Zhuoan. The main reason was that Zhuoan's cultivation level was too low. He did not even have the qualifications to fight with Lei Litian. In the Taisui Sword faction, Jiang Mo looked coldly at Xia Qinfan, who was standing beside the Taisui Sword faction's Grand Elder, and said mockingly, "Today is the Pill Tempering Grand Assembly. I wonder if the alchemist that Miss Xia found can enter the top 50? If he can't enter the top 50, Miss Xia, then you will be a sinner of the Taisui Sword faction." According to the Taisui Sword faction's laws, anyone who harms the interests of the sect will be crushed by the lightning chariot. Even if you are the daughter of the sect master, you are no exception. When Jiang Mo said this, everyone in the Taisui Sword faction was moved. The lightning chariot was the most severe punishment of the Taisui Sword faction. The lightning chariot was extremely heavy, and even second-step Dao validation cultivators would not be able to withstand it. If Xia Qinfan was crushed by the lightning chariot, she would definitely die. The Grand Elder's eyes emitted a cold light. He looked at Jiang Mo and said, "Jiang Mo, it's just a spot. Isn't it too much to use the lightning chariot to crush her?" Jiang Mo cupped his hands at the Grand Elder and said with a smile that did not reach his eyes, "Grand Elder, you can't protect this woman. As the saying goes, if a gentleman breaks the law, he will be punished the same as a commoner. If there are no rules, nothing can be accomplished. Everyone must abide by the sect's laws. If the Grand Elder is not satisfied, you can return to the sect and ask Senior Brother Jean for an explanation. I believe that Senior Brother Jean will give me justice." Chapter 2808. Refining Heavy Ironhide Bambushia Qinfan, who was standing beside the Grand Elder, glared at Jiang Mo with her beautiful eyes and said coldly, "The alchemist I found is much stronger than the trash alchemist you found. He will definitely be able to enter the top 50 in this Pill Grand Assembly." Jiang Mo sneered but didn't say anything. The competition in this pill competition was extremely fierce. He had spent a lot of money to invite a profound grade alchemist, but he wasn't confident that he could enter the top 50. He knew very well that because of the Divine Medicine Valley, the 5 Dao Palace forces had also sent alchemists to participate. Just the number of eternal grade alchemists participating this time was probably in the triple digits. This was still because the Pill Grand Assembly had set up restrictions on the participants. Otherwise, Genesis grade alchemists would probably appear in this Pill Grand Assembly. In Jiang Mo's opinion, even an eternal grade alchemist would find it difficult to enter the top 50. The chances of getting a profound grade alchemist were extremely slim. Moreover, the price of inviting an eternal grade alchemist was too high. Xia Qinfan couldn't possibly afford it. In his opinion, the alchemist she invited might not even be at the heavenly fate grade. The surroundings of the Pill Array Pagoda were still noisy, but Zhuoan had already scanned the surrounding teams. The most noteworthy ones were the teams from the 5 Dao Palace forces. The leaders of these 5 Dao Palace forces were basically all Genesis grade alchemists. In Zhuoan's opinion, the Genesis grade alchemists' auras were even stronger than Huang Wu and Lei Litian's. This also meant that the leaders of these 5 Dao Palace forces were basically at the late stage of the Genesis grade alchemist realm. Some were even at the peak of the Genesis grade alchemist realm. After a while, the noisy surroundings became much quieter. Everyone's gaze landed on the pill-array pagoda. At the top of the pagoda, an old man in a wide robe slowly descended. The moment this old man landed, the surrounding temperature plummeted. It was as cold as winter. Zhuowen acutely sensed that the restrictions set up around the pill-array pagoda were becoming restless because of this old man's arrival. It was as if this old man could completely activate the restrictions around the pill-array pagoda and kill everyone gathered here if he wanted to. Thank you for coming to the Pill-Array Immortal Alliance. I am Huan Taiping, the host of this pill competition. The old man's voice was full of vigor. His face was rosy, and his wide robe fluttered even though there was no wind. He looked like a carefree old immortal. After the old man announced his name, many of the leaders around him revealed looks of awe. Even the leaders of the 5 Dao Palace forces cupped their fists at the old man from afar as a sign of respect. I didn't expect Huan Taiping to be the host this time. He's one of the only Genesis pill refiners in the Pill-Array Immortal Alliance. He has a high status and is a true big shot, Fire Plume sighed. Zhuowen's expression was solemn. The status of a Genesis tier alchemist was much higher than that of a god of creation cultivator. Their status also far surpassed that of a god of creation cultivator. In fact, their status was comparable to the status of the Master of Creation. He didn't think that the Pill-Array Immortal Alliance would send such a big shot to host this event. It seemed like they truly placed a lot of importance on this pill-tempering grand meet. The rules of the competition this time are very simple. There are a total of 2 rounds. The first round is to purify the godly medicine. The top 300 will enter the second round. The second round is to refine pills. After the pills are formed, the judging committee will evaluate the color, quality, grade, and success rate of the pills. They will then send out the corresponding rankings. The final result will be the sum of the points from the 2 rounds. The top 50 will be given the corresponding 1,000 spots. The first place of this pill-tempering grand meet will have the opportunity to enter the Pill-Array Pagoda. After Huan Taiping finished speaking, he waved his sleeves. 2 rays of light shot out from his sleeves and landed on the spacious square. The square was divided into 2 areas by the 2 rays of light. One of the areas was several hundred square meters in size. It had a protruding surface of 3 meters and 13 spots. The other area was several thousand square meters in size. There was a fire pit in this area. Zhuowen knew that this area should be the venue of the Grand Alchemy competition. There are a total of 13 judges this time. Besides me, the other 12 are all experienced peak eternal tier alchemists. They are the true elites of the Pill-Array Immortal Alliance. Huan Taiping was expressionless. After he finished speaking, 12 alchemists in wide robes walked out of the square. They each sat on the main altar, leaving the central seat empty. That was Huan Taiping's seat. Alchemists who have a spot token, please enter. Huan Taiping opened his mouth once again. Soon after, densely packed figures appeared around the plaza. There were at least several thousand of them. Zhuowen casually chose a remote spot and sat cross-legged like an old monk. His gaze fell on the prepared divine medicine on the stone platform in front of him. It was a pitch-black bamboo pole. It was more than 3 feet and 10 inches wide. The surface of the bamboo pole was grayish-white like a rock. It looked like a bamboo pole carved from stone. Heavy ironhide bamboo? Zhuowen looked surprised. This heavy ironhide bamboo's grade wasn't very high. It was only a profound tier divine medicine. However, this heavy ironhide bamboo skin was extremely thick. It was the most difficult divine medicine to purify among all the profound tier divine medicines. It was even more difficult to purify than many eternal tier divine medicines. Even many eternal tier alchemists had a headache over this divine medicine material. After discovering that the divine medicine to be purified was actually the heavy ironhide bamboo, many alchemists' expressions turned ugly. You only have 6 hours. Once 6 hours are up, all of you will stop. At that time, I and the judges will set up a grand array to test the purity. At that time, you will be ranked according to the purity. Huan Taiping didn't care about the bitter expressions of many cultivators. After he finished speaking, he began to count down. Many alchemists had no choice but to bite the bullet. They took out their purification furnaces, ignited their divine flames, and began to purify step by step. After Zhuowen observed the heavy ironhide bamboo for a while, he didn't hesitate to take out the pill emperor turtle. After coercing it to spit out its divine flame, he began to concentrate on the purification. The pill emperor turtle's divine flame was born for refining pills. It was much stronger than Zhuowen's divine flame. In addition, the heavy ironhide bamboo skin was too thick. Zhuowen didn't dare to be careless. The plaza became much quieter all of a sudden, and the only sound was the crackling of the divine fire. Many forces raised their heads to watch the purification of their respective alchemists. They all hoped that their alchemists could get a good result in the first round. In the Taisui sword faction, Jiang Mo's expression didn't look too good. He also had some understanding of the heavy ironhide bamboo. Ordinary profound-grade alchemists had no way to purify this divine medicine. Even for eternal-grade alchemists, the heavy ironhide bamboo was a great challenge. Jiang Mo was very clear that the 3 alchemists he found this time would probably be eliminated in the first round. They had no hope of entering the second round. Xia Qinfan, standing beside the Grand Elder, had a pale face. She saw Zhuowen appear in the square, but she couldn't feel happy. She also knew about the heavy ironhide bamboo. Although she knew that Zhuowen's alchemy skills were good, she knew that Zhuowen's alchemy skills shouldn't be at the eternal grade. But for alchemists below the eternal level, the heavy ironskin bamboo was an insurmountable problem. It was simply impossible to solve. The first round's questions would eliminate all alchemists below the eternal grade. Chapter 2809. Ranking Jiang Mo was irritated. He glanced at Xia Qinfan and said coldly, "Miss Xia, where is the alchemist you found? Didn't you say he would definitely enter the top 50? Let me see what kind of person he is." Xia Qinfan didn't seem to hear him. She stood there in a daze. The bitter smile on her face proved that she was also not calm. Seeing that Xia Qinfan didn't answer, Jiang Mo became angry. He raised his voice and said, "Xia Qinfan, I'm asking you a question. Are you deaf?" The Supreme Elder looked at Jiang Mo coldly and said, "Steward Jiang, when the results of the first round are out, we will know who the last cultivator representing our Taisui sword faction is." Jiang Mo let out a cold snort after the Grand Elder had spoken. However, he did not say anything else. In his heart, he was thinking about how he should use a proper reason to punish Xia Qinfan after this Pill Grand meeting ended. Xia Qinfan's identity as the daughter of the sect master was always a thorn in his side. He couldn't wait to get rid of her. Time ticked by, and the square was overflowing with fiery light. Many of the participating alchemists were concentrating on refining the heavy ironskin bamboo in their hands. Zhuowen's face became ugly as he continued to refine the bamboo. The difficulty of refining the heavy ironhide bamboo was beyond his expectations. 2 hours had passed, and he had only refined about 50% of it. Moreover, the further he refined, the harder it got. Zhuowen estimated that after 6 hours, he would only be able to refine 90% of it. Ever since Zhuowen became an alchemist, his refining precision had never been lower than 90%. Most of the time, it was above 99%. Today was his lowest refining precision. Zhuowen was worried. With such a low refining precision, it would be difficult for him to get first place in the first round. Zhuowen's heart was filled with pressure. He didn't dare to be careless. He concentrated and controlled the divine flame to continuously refine the essence of the heavy ironhide bamboo. Along with the sound of a distant bell, the 6 hours were finally over. The alchemists who were still refining in the square stopped what they were doing. Zhuowen felt a little helpless. He extinguished the divine flame and looked at the medicinal liquid in the purification furnace, frowning slightly. He had already tried his best to purify it, but in the end, the precision of the extraction barely reached 90%. Zhuowen was very dissatisfied with this result. It was also the worst result he had ever achieved in the purification process. If you give me another 2 hours, I might be able to continue purifying it and reach a purity of more than 99%. Zhuowen secretly shook his head. His heart was full of regret, but there was nothing he could do. After all, he had tried his best. Huan Taiping stood up from the judging panel and surveyed the plaza. His loud and clear voice rang out as he said, 6 hours have passed. The first round can be considered to have come to an end. Next, we will evaluate the results of the various alchemists. As he spoke, Huan Taiping took out 9 array flags and waved them out, setting up a rather large array in front of the plaza. This array is to evaluate the results of everyone's purification. It can fairly evaluate the points of everyone's purification results and give the corresponding ranking. Huan Taiping pointed at the array that had just been set up and continued, everyone can collect a small bottle of extraction liquid and place it in this array. After Huan Taiping finished speaking, the alchemists in the plaza all took out jade bottles. After scooping out a small bottle from each of their purification furnaces, they placed their respective extraction liquid in the array. When all of the alchemists' extraction liquid were placed in the array emitted a dazzling white light. Then, in the air of the plaza, a huge projection was projected. On the projection, one ranking after another slowly appeared, from the lowest to the highest. The various forces outside the square were also staring intently at the projection. 3790, Hungshan sects and Hao, purity 11%. When and Hao's name appeared on the screen, a black-faced alchemist in the plaza left dejectedly. Obviously, the one who took the initiative to leave was this and Hao. 3789, extreme martial sects Chen Wu, purity 12%. 1355, white vast sects Liu Xin, purity 32%. As more and more names appeared on the projection, more and more cultivators left the plaza. Many forces around the plaza revealed disappointed expressions. Obviously, it meant that their alchemists had all been eliminated. Jiang Mo of the Taisui sword sect had an extremely ugly expression on his face. The 3 alchemists he had invited were all ranked outside the top 1,000. This also meant that his Taisui sword sect had no chance of getting a share of the Divine Medicine Valley this time. How unlucky. It seems that this pill-tempering assembly was in vain. Jiang Mo couldn't help but curse in a low voice. The surrounding disciples of the Taisui sword sect didn't utter a word. They were afraid that if they said one more word, they would infuriate Jiang Mo. Xia Qinfan, the alchemist you invited was also eliminated, right? The quota you stole is very important. I had already contacted an eternal level alchemist and planned to give the last quota to that alchemist. If we had the help of that eternal level alchemist, our Taisui sword sect would have a great chance of entering the top 50. But now, because of your selfishness, our Taisui sword sect fell short of success. Let's see how you explain this to senior brother Zhon when we return. Jiang Mo stared coldly at Xia Qinfan, who was not far away. He vented all the anger in his heart on Xia Qinfan. The other disciples of the Taisui sword sect didn't dare to speak. Even the Grand Elder was unusually silent. Although they didn't believe that Jiang Mo could invite an eternal level alchemist, it was indeed Xia Qinfan's fault that she stole a quota and gave it to someone else. Even if they knew that Jiang Mo was distorting the truth and exaggerating, Xia Qinfan had already been caught by Jiang Mo. Xia Qinfan couldn't refute this point. The Grand Elder also knew that he couldn't say anything. Jiang Mo was in the right. If he said anything, he would be accused by Jiang Mo. Xia Qinfan glanced at Jiang Mo indifferently and said coldly, "The alchemist I chose hasn't been eliminated yet. Moreover, he has entered the top 1,000. His name hasn't appeared yet." Jiang Mo was stunned. Then, he sneered and said, "Xia Qinfan, are you still trying to quibble? Do you still think that the alchemist you chose can enter the top 50? You're still dreaming, aren't you?" Xia Qinfan didn't even look at Jiang Mo. She retorted, "I'll tell you now. The alchemist I chose is called Zhuowen. His ranking is now in the 900s. But I haven't seen his name appear on the projection. This means that Zhuowen's ranking is above this. I have a hunch that he can enter the top 300 in the first round and smoothly advance to the second round. When Xie Qinfan said this, the cultivators of the Taisui sword sect subconsciously looked at the projection. After searching several times, they indeed couldn't find Zhuowen's name. A glimmer of hope rose in their hearts. Chapter 28:10. Attention. The Supreme Elder looked through the projection several times. After confirming that Zhuowen's name was not there, he nodded inwardly. He was looking forward to seeing this Zhuowen that Xie Qinfan had mentioned. He was very clear that if the alchemist that Xie Qinfan found could enter the top 300, or even the top 50, his future would be extraordinary. If Xie Qinfan was able to rope in such a genius alchemist, her authority in the Taisui sword faction would be much greater. She would not be suppressed by Zhong Chengxian. Jiang Mo furrowed his brows, a glint flashed in his eyes as he coldly sneered, "What dogfart were when? I think you made up that name. I think you couldn't find an alchemist, so you hid the entry token. Now you're boasting in front of me. It's up to you to believe me or not. When the results are out, you'll know whether I'm boasting or not." Xie Qinfan was too lazy to pay attention to Jiang Mo. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on the projection. She hoped that Zhuowen would enter the top 300. At the very least, she would be able to suppress Jiang Mo in the pill competition and leave this loathsome fellow speechless. "You're lying to yourself." Jiang Mo sneered disdainfully. His eyes were also fixed on the projection. On the surface, he looked disdainful of Zhuowen. He even believed that Zhuowen was made up by Xie Qinfan. However, when he saw Xie Qinfan's expression, he felt a little nervous. If Xie Qinfan really found a powerful alchemist, it would not be a good thing for his faction. After all, it wasn't easy for his faction to firmly suppress Xie Qinfan's faction. If a powerful alchemist were to join Xie Qinfan's faction, it might be possible for Xie Qinfan's faction to make a comeback. When he thought of this possibility, Jiang Mo hoped that Zhuowen would appear sooner. Or perhaps, that Zhuowen was a fictional character created by Xie Qinfan. As the rankings on the projection got closer and closer, the number of alchemists in the plaza decreased. The alchemists that were eliminated all left the plaza. As she got closer to the 300th place, Xie Qinfan became more and more nervous. At the same time, she became more and more excited. She didn't expect Zhuowen to be so powerful that he could rank so high in the first round. He was already close to the 300th place, but Zhuowen's name still hadn't appeared on the projection. 301st place, Storm Valley's Nai Yi. Purity, 52%. After the 301st place was reported, a middle-aged man in a black robe sighed softly and his eyes dimmed. After which, he left the square. It had to be said that this Nai Yi was really unlucky. He just happened to be one place away and was eliminated just like that. In the Taisui sword sect, Xie Qinfan covered her mouth when she saw the 301st name. She was so excited that her body was trembling. She knew that the alchemist she had chosen had entered the top 300. After passing the first round, he could enter the second round of the competition. The Supreme Elder standing beside Xie Qinfan also showed a rare fluctuation in his eyes. He knew that the alchemist Xie Qinfan had chosen this time was really not simple. The other cultivators in the Taisui sword sect's team also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At least the alchemists of their Taisui sword sect didn't get eliminated in the first round. This wasn't too embarrassing. On the other hand, Jiang Mo furrowed his brows. His face didn't look too good. Obviously, he didn't expect that the alchemist Xie Qinfan had chosen would be so extraordinary that he could enter the top 300. This made him feel a sense of crisis. At the same time, a trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. At this moment, the remaining 300 alchemists in the plaza were much more relaxed. They knew that they had successfully entered the top 300, so they weren't as worried as they were at the beginning. The 300 alchemists who had relaxed began to size up the other alchemists. They knew that the other alchemists present would be strong competitors in the second round. Zhuowen stood in the same place and didn't move. He was confident that he would get the first place in the first round. The 301st place in the first round had only refined the heavy ironskin bamboo to 52% purity. However, Zhuowen had refined it to 90% purity. The difference between the two was too big. Zhuowen really couldn't think of a reason why he couldn't get the first place in the first round. 300th place, Thunder God Park's Lin Xie. Purity 51.3%. When the 300th place was announced, everyone in the Thunder God Park's team heaved a sigh of relief. Even Lei Zishuan, who was at the front of the team, revealed a trace of a smile. Lin Xie was the only eternal alchemist among the 7 alchemists sent by the Thunder God Park. He was also the strongest alchemist sent by the Thunder God Park. Although Lin Xie's result in the first round was only barely enough to enter the second round, which wasn't ideal, he had succeeded. As long as his performance in the second round was better, there was still hope for him to enter the top 50. When Lin Xie's name was announced, Zhuowen glanced over inadvertently and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. He was no stranger to Lin Xie. When he was led into the Thunder God by Lei Zishuan, he had seen Lin Xie. However, at that time, Lin Xie was very arrogant and looked down on everyone. He was disdainful of Zhuowen and even disdained to be in the same cabin as Zhuowen. Therefore, Zhuowen was assigned to the lower cabin. In Zhuowen's opinion, Lin Xie was at most an ordinary eternal alchemist. With Lin Xie's level, Zhuowen felt that it was very difficult for him to get into the top 50 of this pill-tempering conference. The rankings on the projection continued to push forward, and many eternal grade pill masters who already had some fame appeared on the projection. Moreover, the remaining 300 alchemists were basically eternal alchemists. Many of them were familiar with each other and knew each other well. However, there was one person who stood out, and that was Zhuowen. Zhuowen was definitely a stranger among these 300 alchemists. It was the first time that the others had seen Zhuowen. What attracted everyone's attention was not that Zhuowen was a stranger, but that Zhuowen's alchemy aura was not strong. It was weaker than the surrounding eternal alchemists. This guy doesn't seem to be an eternal alchemist, but a profound-level alchemist. How did he enter the top 300? Who is this guy? Have you already been eliminated? Why are you still here? Are you trying to make up the numbers? The surrounding alchemists were discussing and paying attention to Zhuowen. Lin Xie's gaze also fell on Zhuowen. Immediately, he frowned slightly. He felt that this profound-level alchemist was somewhat familiar. Lin Xie thought for a while and finally remembered this profound-level alchemist. Wasn't this alchemist the heavenly fate alchemist that Lei Zishuan brought to the Thunder God? He remembered that Lei Zishuan called this person Alchemist Zhuo at that time. It had only been more than a month, but Alchemist Zhuo's alchemy level had risen again and reached the profound level. Chapter 28:11. First it's him. Zhuowen didn't die. How did he get here? In the Lightning God's garden, Lei Zishuan finally noticed the alchemist that was being discussed. When she saw the alchemist's face, her beautiful eyes narrowed. She recognized that the alchemist was Zhuowen. However, wasn't Zhuowen chased by Huang Wu and Lei Litian until he escaped from the Thunder God's ship? With Zhuowen's strength, he would definitely die if he encountered Genesis realm experts like Huang Wu and Lei Litian. However, this damned Zhuowen didn't die. Furthermore, he had come to the Pill Array Immortal Alliance to participate in the pill competition. Furthermore, he had entered the top 300 in the first round right under her eyes. The matter with the Lightning God's Garden Lord must be related to this kid. After he's eliminated in the second round, I will capture him and interrogate him. Lei Zishuan's beautiful eyes flickered, emitting a cold light as she stared at Zhuowen in the plaza. In Lei Zishuan's opinion, Zhuowen was able to enter the top 300 in the first round because of luck. After the second round, he would immediately be exposed and eliminated. On the other side, Huangji clan's Huangwu looked at Zhuowen with a bewildered expression. He clearly remembered that he had killed Zhuowen with a single palm strike. Zhuowen's body and soul had been destroyed. He couldn't be more dead. However, Zhuowen had appeared in front of him alive. He recalled that he had been tricked by Zhuowen and was chased by Lei Litian to the point that he could only burn his essence blood to escape. Even now, his vitality had yet to recover. Huang Wu's hatred for Zhuowen had reached the extreme. He couldn't wait to tear out Zhuowen's tendons and tear his bones. Little bastard, it's best that you didn't die. After you're eliminated, you won't be able to escape. I will definitely let you taste the feeling of living a life worse than death. Huang Wu's eyes were ferocious as he looked at Zhuowen with undisguised killing intent. Zhuowen naturally sensed the killing intent in the gazes directed at him from the surroundings. Even without looking, he knew that the only ones who had revealed killing intent towards him were probably Huangji clan's Huang Wu and Lightning God Garden's Lei Zishuan. Zhuowen sneered in his heart. He had yet to collect the debt that Lei Litian and Huang Wu had imposed on him. Now that these two forces wanted to deal with him, they couldn't blame Zhuowen for being ruthless. The rankings continued to move forward, and soon, they reached the top 100. The discussions of the numerous alchemists in the public square became even more intense, because they discovered that the name of the profound grade alchemist that they were doubting still hadn't appeared. Obviously, this profound grade alchemist had entered the top 100 in the first round. Xia Qinfan from the Tai Sui sword faction was so excited that she almost stood up. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on Zhuowen. She didn't expect that Zhuowen would actually enter the top 100, which meant that Zhuowen had a very high chance of entering the top 50. If Zhuowen could really enter the top 50, then their Tai Sui sword faction would really be rich. Moreover, she was the one who had found this alchemist. Xia Qinfan was very clear that with this relationship, her authority in the Tai Sui sword faction would greatly increase. Miss, you really found a powerful alchemist this time. Perhaps this time, our Tai Sui sword faction really has a chance to enter the Divine Medicine Valley. The Supreme Elder was clearly a little excited. Jiang Mo's expression was very ugly, but it was rare for him to remain silent. He didn't mock and ridicule Xia Qinfan. Soon, the rankings reached the 50th place, but Zhuowen's name still didn't appear. Next, the projected rankings continued to move forward. The top 40, the top 30, the top 20, all the way to the 10th place, but Zhuowen's name still didn't appear. At this moment, not only did the 300 alchemists on the plaza feel that something was wrong, but many of the forces around the plaza also felt that something was wrong. Zhuowen could be said to be the only profound grade alchemist among the 300 alchemists, and his grade was the lowest. But now, the rankings had already shown the 10th place, but his name still hadn't appeared. Didn't that mean that this person's ranking in the first round was in the top 10? Many people didn't believe that a mere profound grade alchemist had the ability to enter the top 10, so they started to suspect that there might be a problem with the formation that Huan Taiping had set up. Many alchemists who had been eliminated also had hope in their eyes, and they started to make a fuss. They all knew that once this formation detected a problem, the results of the first round would definitely not count. At that time, they would have to purify the rankings again. In the Tai Sui sword faction's team, Xia Qinfan's beautiful eyes were filled with fear. She also started to suspect that there might be a problem with this formation. She was very surprised that Zhuowen had entered the top 300, and she was pleasantly surprised that he had entered the top 100, but now that he had entered the top 10, she started to feel doubt and fear. Those who were able to enter the top 10 in this pill pageant were basically alchemists sent out by the 5 great Dao palaces, and Zhuowen, this dark horse, was really too dark. He had actually charged into the top 10 like this, which was really too unrealistic. The commotion in the plaza started to become more intense. Huan Taiping also stood up, and coldly swept his gaze over the surroundings, and said, "Everything is normal with the formation. If there are any doubters, you can hand over your purified medicinal liquid for us judges to examine personally. If it really doesn't match your actual results, I'll let you directly enter the second round. If it's not wrong and you're still making a fuss, then I'll directly erase your identity as an alchemist, and you'll never have the right to refine pills." When Huan Taiping said this, the alchemists who had been making a fuss all fell silent, not daring to act rashly. After Huan Taiping finished speaking, he sat back down in his seat. However, his gaze faintly fell on the plaza, where Zhuoan was standing. Ninth place, 10 Absolutes, Yin Corpse Sect, asserts that the purity is 73.1%. Fifth place, Falling Star Mountains Emperor Mo, purity is 75.2%. Fourth place, Hong Xing from the Scarlet Mountain Villa, purity is 76.5%. Just as everyone had guessed, the top 10 were basically monopolized by alchemists from the 5 great Dao palaces. However, everyone's attention now fell on Zhuoan. Now, he was already ranked 4th, but this profound grade alchemist's name still wasn't there. Didn't that mean that this guy had entered the top 3 in the first round? Third place, Chasing Sun Temple's Ri Hui, purity is 77.78%. Second place, Void Palace's Void God, purity is 78%. When the projection showed the name of the second place, everyone's actions were surprisingly uniform, and all their attention fell on Zhuoan, who was in the center of the plaza. They all knew that the only profound grade alchemist in the plaza before them was also the alchemist with the lowest level among the 300 alchemists. He had obtained first place in the first round, and shocked everyone present. First place, Tai Sui Sword Sect's Zhuoan, purity is 90%. However, when the name of the first place finally appeared on the projection, the atmosphere in the plaza was extremely stagnant, and there was absolute silence. Chapter 28:12. Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill. The atmosphere in the plaza was like the surface of a frozen river. It was completely silent. However, this silence only lasted for a short while. Then, like a tidal wave, each wave was higher than the previous one. The entire plaza was in an uproar, and it was extremely noisy. Everyone was crazily discussing, and the main character of their discussion was Zhuoan. The Tai Sui Sword faction's team was petrified, and they stood in a daze. When they confirmed that Zhuoan had indeed obtained first place in the first round of the pill competition, and that the faction in front of Zhuoan's name was indeed the Tai Sui Sword faction, they were ecstatic. Xia Qinfan was so excited that her entire body trembled. Her beautiful face was incomparably red from ecstasy, and she even cried tears of joy. The Supreme Elder, who had always been as calm as water, was also trembling. His lips trembled as he grabbed Xia Qinfan and said excitedly, "Young miss, you've really found the right person this time. If this pill Master Zhuo's results in the second round aren't too bad, it won't be a problem for him to enter the top 50 of the pill competition. This time, our Tai Sui Sword faction has really met a benefactor." Jiang Mo was completely silent. He didn't say anything, but the killing intent in the depths of his eyes was extremely dense. In 6 hours, he was able to refine the heavy ironhide bamboo to 90% purity. This kid is really extraordinary. Huan Taiping calmed down, his eyes shining as he looked at Zhuo when in the plaza. The other 12 judges also revealed shocked expressions. The heavy ironhide bamboo was more difficult to refine than the majority of eternal-grade divine herbs. Most eternal-grade alchemists would find it difficult to refine it to 90% in 6 hours. Generally, only Genesis-grade alchemists who had surpassed the eternal grade could do it. However, this Zhuoan had actually done it. What was even rarer was that this kid was only a profound grade alchemist. They were all experienced alchemists of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. Now, they had suddenly discovered such a talented junior. Moreover, this junior didn't seem to be an alchemist of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. The 13 judges, including Huan Taiping, all had the thought of inviting Zhuoan to join the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. However, the Pill Grand Assembly had yet to end, so they could only think about it. After the Grand Assembly ended, they would personally find Zhuoan to discuss the details of joining the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. The 300 spots for the first round have been decided. This result is fair and just. There is nothing wrong with it. I hope that those alchemists who are unconvinced will give up on the idea of getting lucky. Huan Taiping looked all around, his clear voice resounding in the air above the plaza. Those alchemists who originally harbored wishful thinking all fell silent, not daring to make a fuss anymore. Huan Taiping had a high position in the Pill Array Immortal Alliance, and his prestige was extremely high. Now that he had spoken, the others naturally didn't dare to say anything. Next up is the second round, which is alchemy. However, the alchemy segment is extremely free and there are not many rules. Everyone can refine the divine pills according to the alchemy recipes that you are familiar with. Furthermore, you have 3 chances to refine it. Please make good use of it. The scores for the second round will be reviewed by us 13 judges. We will evaluate your pill formation rate, quality, grade, and other aspects, and then rank you accordingly. Huan Taiping's character was quite decisive, and he didn't hesitate to do things. With a wave of his sleeve, the remaining 300 alchemists in the plaza immediately started the second round of the competition. Zhuowen stood in his seat with a contemplative look in his eyes. The second round was about alchemy. Zhuowen knew very well that among the 300 alchemists, his alchemy Dao level was undoubtedly the lowest. He was only at the profound grade. In other words, his current highest pill formation rate was naturally only at the profound grade divine pill. Of course, if Zhuowen used the mysterious pill art, it wasn't that he couldn't refine the eternal pill, but the failure rate was very high. This pill grand assembly was very important to Zhuowen. If he failed to refine the eternal grade divine pill, Zhuowen knew that even if he took the first place in the first round, his overall score wouldn't make it into the top 50 and he would be eliminated. However, refining the profound grade divine pill was very simple for Zhuowen. At least, he could refine the profound grade divine pill with a success rate of more than 90%, and the failure rate was very low. After thinking about it for a long time, Zhuowen finally chose a profound grade divine pill called the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill. Although the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill was only a profound grade divine pill, it was far more precious than most eternal grade divine pills. In terms of value, it was comparable to the Second Revolution Red Sun Spirit pill mentioned before. Moreover, the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill was known as the most difficult profound grade divine pill to refine. Even many eternal grade alchemists had a failure rate of more than 90% when refining this divine pill. It could be said that this divine pill was a headache for even eternal grade alchemists. Of course, although the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill was very difficult to refine, it was a divine pill that many cultivators yearned for. This was because the effect of this divine pill was specifically to strengthen the soul. Zhuowen had inadvertently learned the pill recipe of the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill from the mysterious alchemy book. Zhuowen knew that as long as he could successfully refine the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill, its value would definitely surpass that of ordinary eternal grade divine pills. Unless it was a top-grade eternal grade divine pill, its value couldn't be compared with the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill. Moreover, Zhuowen was a little worried that the refining of the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill was extremely difficult. This was his first time refining it, so he didn't know if he could successfully refine it. But now, he had no choice. The Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill was the top-grade divine pill among the profound grade divine pills. It was comparable to eternal grade divine pills. If he didn't refine this divine pill and instead refined an ordinary profound grade divine pill, he could enter the top 50, but it would be wishful thinking to win the first place in this pill tempering summit. After making up his mind, Zhuowen took out the Pill Emperor furnace and summoned the Pill Emperor turtle to help him refine the pills. When the Pill Emperor turtle heard that Zhuowen was going to refine the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill, it was so happy that it almost drooled. Unfortunately, Zhuowen didn't plan to share the refined Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill with the Pill Emperor turtle this time. After all, this was the pill tempering summit. The refined divine pill must be complete. If he gave a part of it to the Pill Emperor turtle, it would definitely affect the result. Bai Kaisin's Pill Emperor turtle immediately protested and went on strike, not wanting to help. However, after being threatened by Zhuowen, the Pill Emperor turtle immediately gave in, changing its attitude at lightning speed. When Zhuowen began to refine the pills, the other alchemists around him also refined the divine pills they had chosen in an orderly manner. Chapter 28:13. Furnace explosion in the Taisui sword faction. Xia Qinfan looked worried. She said to the Grand Elder beside her, "Elder, Pill Master Zhuo is only a profound grade alchemist. I'm afraid he can't refine eternal grade divine pills. The second round is very disadvantageous for him." The Grand Elder comforted her, "Young miss, you don't have to worry too much. The failure rate of an eternal grade alchemist refining an eternal grade divine pill is very high. I think that most of the eternal grade alchemists will choose to refine a profound grade divine pill this time. Moreover, Pill Master Zhuo is not an ordinary person. Although he is only a profound grade alchemist, he was able to obtain first place in the first round. His level of alchemy is definitely very high. Even if he can only refine profound grade divine pills, the profound grade divine pills he refines will not be ordinary. I think Pill Master Zhuo will have no problem entering the top 50 of the pill competition." Xia Qinfan nodded, but she was still worried. After all, Zhuowen was the lowest level among the 300 alchemists. Even if Zhuowen's performance in the first round was very eye-catching, it did not mean that his alchemy was also very good. Jiang Mo was gloating. He could not wait for Zhuowen to be eliminated in the second round. In the Thunder God Gardens team, Lei Zishuan's mood was very complicated. After learning that Zhuowen had obtained first place in the first round, the shock in her heart was beyond imagination. At the same time, there was a trace of regret in her heart. In the past, Zhuowen was a guest alchemist of the Thunder God Garden. He represented the Thunder God Garden to participate in the pill competition. However, because they were greedy and coveted Zhuowen's secrets, they completely broke off their relationship with Zhuowen. Originally, they didn't pay much attention to Zhuo Wen's alchemy Dao level. They thought that Zhuo Wen was only a master of Heaven's mandate. Even if he participated in the Pill Grand Assembly, he would only be a dispensable character who went through the motions. However, Zhuo Wen's performance in the first round shocked Lei Zishuan. He was much stronger than the strongest alchemist in the Thunder God Garden, Lin Xie. Lei Zishuan could not help but think that if the Thunder God Garden had not broken off their relationship with Zhuowen, perhaps the glory this time would no longer belong to the Taisui Sword faction, but to their Thunder God Park. This Zhuowen is really shameless. Back then, he represented our Thunder God Garden to participate in the Pill Tempering Grand Assembly. Now that he has reappeared, he went back on his words and actually went to help the Taisui Sword faction. What an ungrateful person. Among the Thunder God Gardens group, some cultivators muttered softly, feeling rather ashamed of Zhuowen. Lei Zishuan didn't stop these rumors from spreading. Instead, her beautiful eyes landed on Zhuowen as she thought to herself, no matter how strong this Zhuowen is, he's only a Xuanji grade divine pill. Among the 300 alchemists, he's at the bottom. Alchemy isn't about purifying medicinal ingredients. In this round, this Zhuowen will definitely be eliminated. Lei Zishuan was very unwilling to let Zhuowen continue to be in the limelight. After all, if this Zhuowen obtained the top 50 in this Pill Tempering Grand Assembly, it would undoubtedly be a ruthless slap to the Thunder God Garden's face. After all, this Zhuowen was just an abandoned child that the Thunder God Garden had casually abandoned. Now, he had actually risen up and was in the limelight in the Pill Tempering Grand Assembly. Didn't this prove that the Thunder God Garden had eyes but failed to see? Huangji family's Huangwu's expression was also ugly. Even he did not expect that Zhuowen would be able to obtain such a dazzling result in the first round. After all, the more attention Zhuowen attracted, the harder it was for him to make a move. Bang! At this moment, an explosion suddenly resounded in the square. One of the alchemists among the 300 alchemists had his furnace exploded, and his face was covered in dust. This alchemist had an unlucky look on his face. However, he quickly adjusted his state of mind and took out some divine herbs to refine another divine pill. In the next period of time, the sound of furnaces exploding rose and fell, and many of them occurred. Bang! The sound of another furnace exploding rang out, and it attracted the attention of many people. Soon after, everyone was surprised to find that the main character of this furnace explosion was actually Zhuowen, who had been in the limelight in the first round. Some of the alchemists who originally disliked Zhuo Wen revealed gloating expressions when they saw Zhuo Wen's cauldron exploding. Zhuowen frowned slightly as he looked at the imperial pill furnace in front of him that was emitting black smoke, and his eyes revealed a pondering expression. It had to be said that the difficulty of refining the heavenly soul marrow-cleansing divine pill was indeed very high. This was somewhat beyond Zhuowen's expectations. After studying the mysterious alchemy book, once Zhuowen advanced to a corresponding level in alchemy, it was very rare for him to fail when refining a divine pill of a corresponding level. However, now that he was already a profound-grade alchemist, he actually failed on his first try to refine the heavenly soul marrow-cleansing divine pill. After failing, Zhuowen did not immediately start refining. Instead, he stood on the spot and pondered, summarizing the specific reasons for his failure. After a while, Zhuowen opened the furnace again to refine the pill. This time, his refining process was extremely slow, and every step was taken with extreme caution. The purification process was very smooth, and the next step was to put the medicinal liquid into the furnace to refine the pill. Just as the pill was about to be formed, Zhuowen's expression changed greatly, and the imperial pill furnace trembled violently. Bang! Zhuowen's furnace exploded again. This time, it was not only the alchemists in the surroundings, but even the spectating cultivators in the square revealed obvious gloating expressions. In the Tai Sui Sword Sect's team, Xia Qinfan frowned slightly and sighed in her heart. The Grand Elder also let out a long sigh, and hurriedly comforted Xia Qinfan, "Young miss, Alchemist Xue still has one last chance. As long as he can successfully refine this last pill, he still has a chance to enter the top 50. Xia Qinfan nodded, but the worry between her brows deepened. This time, Zhuowen stood on the spot, not moving at all, as if he had been petrified. In the eyes of outsiders, Zhuowen must have been struck dumb by the two failures. The alchemists in the square whistled at Zhuowen, expressing their disdain and contempt for Zhuowen. On the judging panel on the square's main altar, Huan Taiping's gaze also fell on Zhuowen's side. Looking at the residue of Zhuowen's failed pill furnace, Huan Taiping's eyes narrowed slightly. He had some guesses in his heart, and he had even more expectations for Zhuowen. Time slowly passed, and Zhuowen still stood on the spot, deep in thought. At this moment, alchemists finished refining one after another. The alchemists who finished refining all calmly sat on the spot, quietly waiting for the other alchemists to finish. As time passed, more and more alchemists finished the second round. Of course, during this period of time, furnace explosions still occurred. Among them, many alchemists who failed 3 times and were eliminated, leaving the square in disappointment. Zhuowen still stood on the spot, not moving at all. He still had not started his third refinement. At this moment, there were only a few alchemists who were still refining pills. Zhuowen, who was still standing on the spot, was like a crane among chickens. Chapter 28:14. Second round rankings. Xia Qinfan was a little anxious. In her opinion, Zhuowen looked like he had lost his mind. Lei Zishuan and Huangwu sneered. Looking at Zhuowen's appearance, the mocking smile on their faces became even more intense. Even Huan Taiping, who was somewhat optimistic about Zhuowen, couldn't help but frown when he realized that Zhuowen wasn't moving after a long time. Finally, the remaining alchemists had basically completed their refinement and were sitting in front of their pill furnaces. However, their gazes fell on Zhuowen. They knew that there was only one alchemist left who hadn't completed his refinement yet. Lin Xie was sitting in a corner. He had also completed his refinement. This time, in order to be foolproof, he had chosen to refine the Xuanji grade divine pill. It wasn't very difficult. Even so, Lin Xie had used up 2 chances before he successfully completed the alchemy on his third try. Lin Xie looked at the other alchemists sitting around him and sighed softly. He knew that he had no chance of entering the top 50 of the pill competition this time. In the first round, he was only ranked 300th, which was considered to be at the bottom. In the second round, he had only refined the Xuanji grade divine pill. Although he had succeeded, he didn't have any advantage in the second round. This time, he felt that it would be difficult for him to enter the top 100, let alone the top 50. Lin Xie naturally saw Zhuowen, who was still standing, and a hint of gloating and pleasure appeared in his eyes. After Zhuowen had obtained first place in the first round, his mood was very complicated and even a little irritated. Lin Xie was very unhappy that this alchemist, whom he had disdained before, had obtained such a good result in the pill competition. Now that he saw Zhuowen being defeated, Lin Xie was extremely happy. He couldn't wait for Zhuowen to be eliminated in the second round. Many people began to urge him, thinking that Zhuowen was deliberately stalling for time. Finally, Zhuowen began to move. He ignited the divine flame again, purified the medicinal ingredients, put them into the pill furnace, and controlled the divine flame. His movements were as smooth as flowing water. This time, Zhuowen's refining speed was extremely fast. It only took him a little more than 2 hours to complete all the steps of refining the divine pill. During this time, he didn't make any mistakes, and there were no explosions. When the rich medicinal fragrance wafted out, Zhuowen knew that his batch of heavenly soul-washing marrow divine pills had been completely refined successfully. His hanging heart was completely relieved. He cupped his hands towards Huan Taiping and sat down cross-legged. When Zhuowen finished refining the heavenly soul marrow cleansing divine pill, Huan Taiping stood up and said to the surrounding people, "All the alchemists in the second round have finished refining pills. Now, all the alchemists, put the divine pills you refined into bottles and hand them over. Let us evaluate and grade them, and choose a ranking." When Huan Taiping finished speaking, the alchemists in the square lifted their pill furnaces and took out jade bottles to bottle the refined divine pills. Then, they handed them to the main altar's judges. Naturally, Zhuowen also meticulously placed the heavenly soul marrow cleansing divine pill into a bottle and engraved his own brand on the jade bottle. Zhuowen was extremely satisfied with the heavenly soul marrow divine pill he refined this time. This was because the grade of the divine pill this time had reached the level of special grade. He had successfully refined 12 divine pills in one furnace. Zhuowen knew that with the results of the second round, his heavenly soul marrow divine pill had a very high chance of entering the top 3. Coupled with the first place in the first round, his chances of getting first place were very high. The 13 judges on the judging panel began to open the jade bottles of their respective alchemists. They analyzed and compared. At the same time, they discussed the specific differences. In the square, many alchemists looked nervously at the judging panel. They knew that the scores given by the judges would determine the final result of the pill-tempering Grand Assembly. 4 hours later, the voices on the judging panel finally became much softer. After listening to the opinions of many people, Huan Taiping stood up again. He looked around and his gaze stopped on Zhuowen for a while. Then, he naturally moved away. Zhuowen felt that Huan Taiping's gaze was somewhat passionate. It was as if he had seen some kind of treasure that he liked, which made him feel quite uncomfortable. After our discussion, the rankings of the second round have finally been determined. Now, I will announce the final results of the second round from the lowest to the highest. After Huan Taiping finished speaking, a commotion arose in the square. However, it quickly calmed down. There are a total of 95 alchemists who failed in refining this time. Those 95 alchemists have a score of 0. I won't say much. I will directly start from the 205th place, Thunder God Park's Lin Xie. He refined the profound grade Heavenly Heart Flame Pill. Success rate, 30%. Medium grade. Lin Xie, who was sitting at the side, turned pale when he heard that his ranking was almost at the bottom. His body trembled. He knew that he had no chance of entering the top 50 of the pill-tempering Grand Assembly. Thunder God Park's Lei Zishuan sighed softly. She knew that their Thunder God Park was completely unrelated to the quota of the Divine Medicine Valley 153rd place, Black Tortoise Sect's Ju Wu. He refined the profound grade explosive flame pill. Success rate, 60%. Medium grade. 100th place, Wuxin Sect's Chen Xin. He refined the profound grade martial art pill. Success rate, 70%. High grade. As the rankings continued to be announced, Zhuowen discovered that among the 300 pill refiners, the majority of them were concocting Xian Ji grade divine pills. At the very least, The pill refiners in the top 100 were concocting Xian-Ji-grade divine pills. Some of the alchemists in the top 100 were refining eternal-grade divine pills. However, their success rate was basically between 10% and 20%. Moreover, the quality was basically low-grade. It could be said that it was terrible to look at. Soon, the rankings reached the top 50. Xia Qinfan, who had been on tenterhooks, was extremely excited. Because she hadn't heard Zhuowen's name yet, which meant that Zhuowen had also entered the top 50 in the second round. Next, the rankings were announced to the top 40, top 30, top 20, and all the way to the top 10, but Zhuowen's name still hadn't appeared. At this moment, not only Xia Qinfan was in an uproar, but many forces around the square were also in an uproar. Since Zhuowen won the first place in the first round, he had attracted the attention of many people. Now that the rankings of the second round were announced, Zhuowen became the focus of attention. Many people wanted to see what ranking Zhuowen would achieve in the second round. Until the top 3, Zhuowen's name still hadn't appeared. The people around the square fell silent. They knew that Zhuowen had entered the top 3 in the second round. Third place, chasing Sun Temple's Ri Hui. He refined the Eternal Grade Divine Pill, 9 Yin Blood Fusion Divine Pill. Success rate, 60%. High grade. Second place, Void Palace's Void God. He refined the Eternal Grade Divine Pill, Yuanyang Jade Pill. Success rate, 70%. High grade. First place, Taisui Sword Sect's Zhuowen. He refined the Profound Grade Divine Pill, Tianhun Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill. Success rate, 100%. High grade. When Huan Taiping announced the first place, everyone was in an uproar, especially when they heard that Zhuowen had only refined a Profound Grade Divine Pill. Everyone voiced their doubts. Chapter 28:15. Huan Taiping appears. The clamor and condemnation in the plaza became more and more intense like a wave. Almost all the cultivators joined in the commotion. In an instant, the originally quiet and peaceful plaza became as noisy as a market. However, a small portion of the cultivators had a slight change in expression when they heard about the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill. Clearly, they had guessed the origin of the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill. They stopped their heckling abruptly. He, I was wondering how a mere profound grade alchemist like him could obtain first place in the first round. So there was an inside story. I suspect that this kid is an internal member of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to obtain such preferential treatment. In the square, many alchemists started to discuss indignantly, and their gazes towards Zhuowen were filled with disdain. These alchemists only paid attention to the first half of Huan Taiping's words, the Profound Grade Divine Pill, but ignored the name of the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill in the second half. Zhuowen stood in place, facing the disdainful discussions around him, his expression calm. He knew that most of the cultivators in the plaza were following the commotion, and there were many who were inciting the crowd. At the very least, Zhuowen's divine sense discovered that Thunder God Garden's Lei Zixuan and Huangji family's Huang Wu were secretly inciting their own people to incite the surrounding cultivators, causing the commotion to become even more intense. There were indeed a portion of cultivators in the plaza who did not know much about the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill, but that did not mean that everyone did not know about it. This commotion was obviously aimed at Zhuowen, wanting to remove Zhuowen's title of first place. This was because Zhuowen discovered that not only were there people from Thunder God Garden and Huangji family, there were also people from other forces secretly inciting the commotion, including the 5 great Dao Palace forces. After all, the top 10 alchemists of this pill competition all came from the 5 great Dao Palace forces, and Zhuowen was the only alchemist who came from outside the Dao Palace forces. As long as Zhuowen's first place was removed, the 5 great Dao Palace forces would naturally benefit. Boom. Boom. When the uproar in the square reached its peak, the restrictions on the surface of the square were activated. A glaring light flickered, and an incomparably vast aura instantly crushed down. Poochie. Due to the oppressive aura of the restrictive arrays, all the cultivators within the square coughed out blood. Even Zhuowen grunted, nearly falling to one knee. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a look of shock. Even though he already knew that the Pill Array Immortal Alliance had set up restrictions everywhere, the restrictions on the plaza around the Pill Array Tower were especially strong. However, when the restriction on the surface was completely activated, it actually reached such a terrifying level. Moreover, Zhuowen faintly discovered that the restrictions around the square had not been completely activated. Once they were completely activated, Zhuowen knew that his life would be in danger. As expected of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. This formation is even stronger than the protective formations of those Dao palaces. Zhuowen sighed in his heart, but his gaze fell on the figure standing in front of the square. The figure who stood up was none other than the person in charge of this Pill Dao Grand Assembly, Huan Taiping. At this moment, Huan Taiping's gaze was extremely cold. He looked around and coldly snorted. Instantly, the pressure of the restrictions around the square became even more terrifying. Many cultivators with lower cultivation directly coughed out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground, beginning to twitch. Looks like you're very dissatisfied with our evaluation. Are you beginning to question our Pill Array Immortal Alliance? Huan Taiping opened his mouth, his voice as cold as the winter of the 12th lunar month. Now, I'll tell you why Zhuowen was able to obtain the first place in the second round. Even though he only concocted a profound grade divine pill, it's called the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill. Even though the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill is only a profound grade divine pill, it's more precious than an ordinary eternal grade divine pill. If the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill that little friend Zhuowen concocted was only of ordinary grade, and the success rate wasn't high, then he naturally wouldn't have the qualifications to obtain the first place. However, the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill that he concocted had a 100% success rate, and each of them had reached the unique grade. He deserves to obtain the first place in the second round. Speaking up to here, Huan Taiping stomped his right foot, and the entire square seemed to tremble. Shortly after, the restriction pressure of the square actually increased by a level. This made those cultivators with lower cultivation suffer. At this moment, it could be said that they were better off dead than alive. Even those second-step Dao confirming cultivators felt an unbearable pressure, and their expressions didn't look too good. The primordial young jade pill concocted by the Void Palace's Void God in second place is extremely difficult to concoct among the eternal grade divine pills. Moreover, its value is almost the same as the Heavenly Soul Marrow Cleansing Divine Pill. If the primordial young jade pill concocted by the Void God had a 100% success rate, and its quality had also reached the unique grade, then the first place would belong to the Void God. However, the Void God didn't. Everyone, do you still think that Zhuowen obtained the first place in name only? Huan Taiping's gaze suddenly became stern, and at the same time, the pressure in the square increased by another level. Everyone in the square was complaining incessantly, repeatedly admitting their mistakes. Even Zhuowen had a wry smile on his face. The pressure in the square was indiscriminate. Even he had to suffer this unexpected calamity. After getting everyone to admit their mistakes, Huan Taiping's expression became much better. With a wave of his sleeve, the terrifying pressure in the square finally disappeared. The cultivators who were originally suppressed by this pressure to the point where they wished they were dead finally breathed a sigh of relief. They stood up and cupped their hands towards Huan Taiping, no longer mentioning their previous objections. Zhuowen cupped his hands towards Huan Taiping from afar. He knew that Huan Taiping was actually still somewhat biased towards him. Otherwise, Huan Taiping wouldn't have spared no effort to speak up for him. Huan Taiping only nodded towards Zhuowen and continued, "Now that the results of the 2 rounds have come out, we have combined the results of the 2 rounds and have already obtained the overall ranking. The first place goes to Zhuowen of the Taisui Sword Sect. The second place goes to the Void Palace's Void God." When Huan Taiping finally listed out the final results of the rankings, the plaza was strangely quiet, and no one raised any objections. At the same time, the Taisui Sword Sect's team began to become lively. The first place alchemist this time was from their Taisui Sword Sect, and according to the rules of the pill competition, the first-place alchemist would be able to obtain the most spots. Many powers began to build relationships with the Taisui sword sect, trying to see if they could obtain a few spots from the Taisui sword sect. After the final results came out, Xia Qinfan was almost dizzy from the huge impact of happiness. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.